The American experiment hung in the balance. Pennsylvania sent her sons to the fight and forged the arsenal that ushered in a new birth of freedom. In World War II, Pennsylvania built the arsenal of democracy and helped America overwhelm tyranny with unmatched industrial might, single-handedly outproducing the combined Axis powers. Now, in an era of new threats, Pennsylvania is forging a new arsenal of freedom.
Peace through strength.
Welcome to the Pennsylvania Defense and Innovation Summit.
Academia and government, good morning and welcome to Carlisle Barracks. I'm Major General Trevor Bradenkamp, the President and Commanding General of Army University, and on behalf of Army Secretary Dan Driscoll and Acting Chief of Staff General Chris Leneve, along with the soldiers, civilians, and families of this post, it's my privilege to welcome you here today. Before we spend 2 days talking about the future of American defense, I would ask everyone to take a couple minutes to consider that you are sitting on ground that has been in the business of American defense longer than the nation itself. In 1757, at the height of the French and Indian War, the British Army built a post here at Carlisle Barracks. The Cumberland Valley that the barracks sits in was at the edge of the frontier at the time. British General John Forbes staged an army right here, and he cut a road across the mountains to the forks of the Ohio, the place we now call Pittsburgh. And marching with Forbes was a 26-year-old Virginia colonel named George Washington. Washington first saw this valley wearing the king's colors, but 20 years later, he was at war with the king, and this small British outpost that launched him against the French became a supply and manufacturing depot for the American Revolution. The Continental Congress needed cannon, muskets, and powder made somewhere the British fleet could not reach, and so it chose this place. The soldiers called it Washingtonburg. Right here, because of the nearby Pine Grove Furnace and the fresh water from the Letort Creek, they cast cannon, repaired muskets, and made gunpowder. You could say Carlisle was the first arsenal of freedom. And if you were to walk a few hundred yards west of this building, you would find the proof. On the other side of our post stands a limestone powder magazine built in 1777 by Hessian prisoners captured at Trenton, the garrison Washington surprised at dawn after crossing the Delaware on Christmas night, 1776. It's the oldest standing structure in the United States Army, and we've kept it in very good shape. When the revolution ended, Carlisle stopped making weapons and started making soldiers. In fact, the first school of the American Army, the Artillery School and Laboratory, was resolved in Congress on 4 February 1778 and established here. In 1838, the Army opens its School of Cavalry and training the horsemen who rode west. Confederate cavalry burned the post in 1863 on their way to Gettysburg, but the Army rebuilt it. In 1920, the Medical Field Service School stood up here, and the medics it trained went ashore in Normandy and across the Pacific. Then in 1951, the United States Army War College arrived, and for the last 75 years, Carlisle has focused on developing strategic leaders. Each year, we educate the senior leaders of our military services and more than 70 allied and partner nations. Secretary of War Elihu Root founded the college in 1901 with a charge that still governs everything we do here. He said, and I quote, "Not to promote war, but to preserve peace through intelligent and adequate preparation to repel aggression." I know you didn't come here for a history lesson, but Pennsylvania's story is the story of American defense. The long rifles that held the frontier came out of the Lancaster gun shops. The Continental Navy was born on the Philadelphia waterfront. Bethlehem steel went into the hulls and guns of 2 world wars, and Scranton still forges artillery shells today. Letterkenny Army Depot, just 30 miles down the road, keeps the Patriot missiles ready to fight tonight. For nearly 270 years, when America needed to arm itself, it came to Pennsylvania. Now, the Secretary of War has given the entire department 3 plain objectives: restore the warrior ethos, rebuild our military, and reestablish deterrence. And the Secretary of the Army in Chief have said, our Army will transform into a leaner, more lethal force by adapting how we fight, train, organize, and buy equipment. We cannot, however, transform alone. Rebuilding the arsenal takes the factories, the foundries, the shipyards, the laboratories, all enabled by unmatched American ingenuity. It's great to see that America has come to Pennsylvania again. Readiness to fight and win has been manufactured here since 1777. And in my humble opinion, it would be difficult to choose a more appropriate place than Carlisle Barracks. Thank you, and again, welcome. I'll now be followed by Congressman Perry, who represents this district.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome United States Representative for Pennsylvania's 10th District, Scott Perry.
Hello, I'm an Army guy, so I got to say it. I'm a graduate of the War College, so please indulge me. It's great to be with you. Welcome. If you're not from Pennsylvania, welcome to Pennsylvania. We've got a huge, we do much more than our part and what could be expected for the defense industrial base for our nation in Pennsylvania. You're going to see some of that stuff out here and around the grounds. Of course, you know, the Chinook is made here. We make the Paladin. We do anything from parts of the nuclear triad to military bolts and fasteners. And so Pennsylvania's big, about 10,000 companies, a couple 100,000 people make their living working in the defense industrial base in Pennsylvania. So this is apt. We thank Senator McCormick for hosting this and putting this together because it's important that we acknowledge what we do here for the country. From a political standpoint, you know, people always look at and should always look at, is our policy working? Is what we do the correct, you know, are we on track? And Ronald Reagan, I think, generally termed the phrase or coined the phrase peace through strength. But of course, it goes back to the Romans who said, if you want peace, prepare for war. And I think over the course of time, at least during this presidency, we have shown that this policy does work, is working. But of course, you need the credible threat of action, not just having and being prepared, but to use it as and if necessary. And so it's important because we live in a dangerous world, maybe more dangerous than ever. And people could say, well, look, the United States has been under threat internally and externally for a long period of time, and that is true. But the scale of things and the speed of which things happen today are different than ever before. And so that's what I think, among other things, that we need to be prepared for and kind of let some of the things of the past go by. I know it is difficult, but yet, and some of the things we need to maintain. And I think about most of you folks in the room, look, you all love your country. This is why you're here, and this is why we want you to be here. We live in a great place with a system that is unlike anything else in the world. But we got to be careful and we got to be sure that we're doing things at the right time for the right reasons, right? And so, look, I'm not an A-10 pilot, but I'm just going to pick that one as a platform that I'm an admirer of that seems to do a very good job. Made just south of here in Hagerstown, Maryland by Fairchild. And it does a great job at close air support. And there's, you know, the Air Force has been trying to get rid of it for a long time. At some point, the Army wanted to have it. People that see it in operation and action, if you're on the doing business end of that thing, you don't want to be there. If you're servicing the target, there's no better place to be. And I know we all want new things, but if this thing works as well as it does, and there's nothing better, we don't need and we can't afford new things. And so I know that that's always going to be a topic of conversation because technology changes and what have you. But that's where being an American and being in the defense industrial base and being a contractor or being a purveyor of these things for the U.S. government is important, that we kind of look at the thing holistically. Is this the right thing to do? Can we do better? Or does this thing meet its criteria? And I think that's important. Look, we have an unprecedented budget request in front of us right now as the U.S. Congress, right? $1.5 trillion. And you know how things go in Washington, D.C. I get, and I think we get, that we don't have the lines that we need right now to make munitions and things fast enough. And so we want a one-time investment to increase production as necessary so we can safeguard the country. But as things go in Washington, D.C., once you set the new baseline, the next year you start at that baseline and keep going. And ladies and gentlemen, we can't afford that. Ever since I can remember, I graduated high school in 1980, so that's a long time ago now, and immediately joined the Army. And ever since I can remember, commanders, all wearing stars and above that, said that the national debt is a problem. It is one of the top national security threats, our national debt. And every single year, it continues to climb and continues to climb. And I work among people, they're great people, they're wonderful colleagues. And when it comes to defense spending, well, we all have to vote for that because we're all for the defense of the nation, and we are. But there's this unholy alliance that says, if you're going to spend more money on defense, we've got to spend more money on these other things. And no matter what the cost is, that's what we're going to do. Ladies and gentlemen, the political tides are changing a bit, as you can probably see, especially if you wore the uniform. There's concerns among elected members that people are elected now to positions and run our country, run our municipalities, who don't love our country, who don't, I think we just need to say it that way, who don't believe in the system that we have. And so my message to you today is that you have, like Pennsylvania, you have an outsized voice because of what you do and what people perceive you do, and people respect you. When things are going the wrong way, when things need to be said, you can't just wait on the member of Congress to say it. You can't just wait on the elected official to say it. This is your country too. And I know that you love the country. That is why you're here. You love the system that we have. We want you to be successful. We want you to be profitable. We want you to take care of your employees. We want you to take care of our country in the things that you do. But if someone's doing something for the wrong reason, you too have a voice. And we all need to make sure our voice, we got one trip around this planet in our lifetime, one trip. So we all have to make it worth it. And so don't just count on members in political office to make the case for the things that you know are important, whether it's saving the A-10 or not, whether it's buying a new system, whether it's scrapping what we thought was going to happen and moving into new technology. You have a voice. Make sure it is for the right reasons. Make sure it is in keeping with the fact that you love all of your country and you want to do the best. We all need to do better. We all need to do more, and we all have to have a voice. I appreciate you coming today. I appreciate you being in Carlisle. This is a wonderful town. Senator McCormick has done a great job of putting a fantastic program together. And with that, I want to say that Senator McCormick is I think a sixth generation Pennsylvania, graduated from Bloomsburg University. Like, if you read his resume, Senator McCormick has lived the American dream and embodied the American dream, attended the West Point, the U.S. Military Academy, got his doctorate from Princeton, I believe, went into industry, retired, left the Army as a captain, right? Did his service with the 82nd Airborne in combat and has come back to service as a United States Senator. So we have someone that understands every facet of what happens on this supply chain and in protecting our country, and we are blessed to have him. Would you please give a warm welcome to United States Senator Dave McCormick. Thank you.
All right, good morning. Thank you, Congressman, for that great introduction. General Bradenkamp, thank you. And thank you all for being here. What a great honor to have this terrific event and have it at the Army War College, which is a place that has played such a prominent role in America's history. And I want to welcome you all to the first ever Pennsylvania Defense and Innovation Summit. I really want to thank you for being here. Thank you. I want to thank Scott Perry for his service to the country and for that terrific introduction and for your leadership. Pennsylvania is lucky to have you in Congress, and I also want to thank General Bradenkamp. When we came and visited, I don't know, about a year ago, said maybe at some point we'd like to do an event here. His team was incredible and so supportive. And I think what you're going to experience over the next 2 days is going to be absolutely fantastic, in large part due to the terrific team here. I also want to thank Secretary Driscoll, who will be here later today and here tomorrow, because the Army just got behind this in a huge way. So I want to thank all of those who allowed us to be here. As the 9th senator in American history to graduate from West Point, I am particularly honored to host this event. But before we begin, I want to take a moment to recognize the tragic passing of my friend and colleague, Senator Lindsey Graham. Now, it's hard not to think of Lindsey when you're going to have a conference talking about, a summit talking about peace through strength. He was a good man and a good patriot, and he poured his heart into fighting for a strong military in which he had served and for keeping the American people free and safe. And we'll miss Lindsey's legendary wit, his infectious passion for causes greater than himself. And so my wife, Dean, and I want to ask you to join us in keeping his family and friends and staff in your thoughts and prayers. You know, we're also gathered at a moment of reflection on our nation's 250th anniversary of independence. And in a moment as consequential as any moment in American history and maybe in human history, for all of America's existence, Pennsylvania, for every one of those 250 years, Pennsylvania has been at the forefront of our nation's history, of our nation's industry, and of our nation's innovation. And this legacy includes the Carlisle Barracks, where the Continental Congress established an arsenal in 1776, as the general said. And General Washington's forces were here and in other places. And this building, Root Hall, honors the Secretary of War, Root, who founded the Army War College. The mission was to preserve peace by intelligent and adequate preparation to repel aggression. In other words, peace through strength. Peace through strength, that's the mission. And today, achieving President Trump's vision of peace through strength demands new players and new ways of doing business. And what I think you're going to see over the next 2 days is Pennsylvania can help show the way. And such radical new thinking has never been more needed in America's history, in the history of our military. China, Iran, Russia, North Korea, they all share one objective: a weakened United States. And they're actively working together toward that end. And meanwhile, we've got big changes. AI, autonomous systems, precision weapons, they're transforming. We see it on television every day. They're transforming warfare in ways that were unimaginable when I served in the 82nd Airborne Division 35 years ago in Operation Desert Storm. And yet our defense industry, our defense establishment has grown lethargic. And our definition of national security too narrow. We saw that during COVID. We were vulnerable and insecure because we thought about national security too narrowly. Now, President Trump, his team, Secretary Hegseth, many of the great people you're going to see over the next couple of days, they made enormous progress in cutting red tape, in rewarding speed, and in putting the warfighter first. Since January 2025, more than $34 billion in defense contracts and investment has flowed into Pennsylvania. And last year, Congress delivered $150 billion plus up and the first $1 trillion defense budget. But meeting this moment will require more. It will require industry, academia, and Congress to step up further. The defense industrial base extends far beyond a handful of primes to thousands of small and mid-sized manufacturers, the mines, the mills behind every weapon, and the depots, the repair lines, and the shipyards that keep them in the fight, including Philadelphia's, where a $5 billion investment from Hanwha is reviving American shipbuilding. Our future also includes, probably more than ever, emerging industries such as drones and robotics and autonomous systems. And Pennsylvania's nearly 1,000 space suppliers, along with the energy and data centers that power them. Leave out one piece, any one piece in that constellation, and we leave a hole in our defense. A lesson America learned during COVID, when we could not produce essential things, semiconductors, pharmaceuticals. Second, we need a new culture across our defense enterprise, one that takes risk, moves fast, learns from failure, and from our allies and our adversaries alike. One that embraces dual-use technologies from the commercial world. For years, the bureaucracy has rewarded risk aversion and process over production. And that must change. That is changing, but it needs to change faster. And finally, winning will require a broader team. Traditional contractors, technology innovators, energy and AI builders, skilled tradesmen, and the schools that train them. It's also going to require a whole of government effort, including agencies such as Commerce and the Export-Import Bank. It's like a symphony. And like any symphony, each group needs to play a different part, and the music only works when all the parts play together. So over the next 2 days, we're bringing together 1,300 leaders, more than 600 from the C-suite, over 500 organizations to catalyze opportunities for Pennsylvania and to take the critical steps in this radical transformation of our defense industrial base that is required. Today, you're going to hear some key leaders in this, Undersecretaries Emil Michael and Michael Duffy. They'll discuss the Pentagon's acquisition transformation that they are leading, followed by a conversation on the workforce America needs. We'll end our morning programming with a keynote that I'm especially proud to announce. The Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, will be here. Over the past year, General Kane has led the Joint Force through some of the most demanding operations in its modern history. From Operation Midnight Hammer to the raid that brought down Maduro, to Justice, to Operation Epic Fury. And here's a detail worth knowing. The special operators who flew into Caracas that night on a Chinook helicopter built in Ridley Park, Pennsylvania, that's the only place that America makes them today. From there, the Pennsylvania Trade Show opens. As you came in, you saw more than 130 booths, and I really want to encourage you to circulate among them. It's an incredible display, a beautiful showcase of all that Pennsylvania brings to our national defense. And this afternoon, the Keystone meetings begin. More than 1,500 curated one-on-one conversations that many of you will participate in, connecting Pennsylvania companies with investors, with buyers, with Pentagon officials, and creating opportunity for action, opportunity for change across our Commonwealth. Tomorrow, the biggest leaders from industry, investment and technology, academia, labor, and government will join President Trump to discuss how peace through strength will secure America's next 250 years of prosperity. But we're not just here to talk. At last year's Energy and Innovation Summit, we announced $92 billion in private investment for Pennsylvania. And this year's summit will again make billions of dollars worth of announcements that will create thousands of jobs for Pennsylvanians and plant seeds that over time will grow into an even stronger, more diversified, and more innovative defense industrial base. Now, it's not my goal, and you're going to feel pushed. It's not my goal that you leave this year's summit satisfied, that all your questions have been answered. In fact, I hope you leave with further questions and decide to build those answers right here in Pennsylvania. The summit is the first word, not the last word, on Pennsylvania's future in defending America's future. And there's no place more fitting, no single place more fitting in America to bring this team together than Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has the factories, the innovators, the energy, the workforce that America needs. Our 190,000 traditional defense workers supply more than 465,000 parts across 2,300 weapon systems, while our universities and technology companies advance autonomous, hypersonic, undersea and space capabilities that are literally shaping the face of modern warfare. This combination of legacy industry, cutting-edge innovation, and skilled workers is the model our national defense must emulate. And let me close with this statement, and I look forward to seeing many of you in person over the next couple of days. But at the height of the Cold War, I remember this well, Ronald Reagan reminded us And I quote, "We have every right to dream heroic dreams," end of quote. Today, our nation is facing, once again, determined adversaries. For too long, we've lived on the fumes of President Reagan's military buildup. President Trump has charted a new path. And our task here over the next 2 days is to bring new players together in new ways and win the peace that only comes through strength. Thank you for being here and for believing in Pennsylvania and America's future. Now let's get to work. Thank you.
Midnight Hammer, a deliberate and precise strike against 3 Iranian nuclear facilities.
The daring U.S. military raid to capture and extract Nicolas Maduro.
Integrating complex air, ground, space, and maritime operations.
The U.S. forces striking over 3,000 targets, destroying 43 Iranian warships, all in just a matter of days.
Our warfighters are leveraging a variety of advanced AI tools. These systems help us sift through vast amounts of data in seconds, so our leaders can cut through the noise and make smarter decisions faster than the enemy can react.
An American-made drone technology is helping guide Ukrainian strikes.
Ukraine uses drones to fight the much bigger and more powerful Russia, and many say right now Ukraine is winning. It's become the go-to weapon for asymmetric warfare.
They're estimated to inflict around 80% of combat casualties on both sides.
Several drone manufacturers are showing off the latest and greatest drone technology for a chance to compete and win a $300 million Department of War contract to build 30,000 drones for our U.S. military.
Gentlemen, please welcome our first panel, the Department of War Acquisition Transformation Update, with our moderator, Chancellor of the University of Pittsburgh, Joan Gable, and our panel, the Honorable Michael Duffy, Undersecretary of War for Acquisition and Sustainment, and the Honorable Emil Michael, Undersecretary of War for Research and Engineering.
Everybody, and let me join the congressmen and senators' welcome to the Commonwealth. We're so delighted to have all of you here, and to both of you, secretaries, thank you so much. I am very honored to be joined by the Honorable Michael Duffy, who is the Undersecretary of War for Acquisition and Sustainment, and the Honorable Emil Michael, who's the Undersecretary of War for Research and Engineering. And we're here today to talk about acquisition reform in the context of the opening remarks that you heard, what it means for us to take what is actually a very technical topic and something we've been talking about for a very long time, and think about what's happened in the last 18 months, or maybe even less, what's happened in the last week sometimes, depending on what we're discussing, so that we can think about national security at the pace of change, what it takes for us to refine our capacity, make the right investments, and move so that we have the strength that has been described so aptly by the opening speakers. I want to talk to both of the secretaries today about acquisition reform in the context of the subjects that won't be a surprise, I think, to anyone in the room: resources, technology, production and supply chain, the workforce, educational partners, and other perhaps non-traditional partners like industry partners that we may not have considered. But before we go into the detailed themes, I want to start with a landscape question for each of you. And I'll start with you, Secretary Duffy. As you think about your portfolio, could you just lay out for our audience what you think the key challenges are? Where are your friction points around acquisition reform?
Well, thank you for the invitation to be here today. Thank you, Senator McCormick, for organizing this great event of patriots across Pennsylvania who are contributing to our national security through the Defense Industrial Base. I think the biggest friction point that we have in acquisition and acquisition transformation is decades of kind of entrenched culture that really, I think, is what gets in the way of our ability to achieve the speed and volume that we need to support the warfighter. Once upon a time, deliberate and intentional and rigorous engineering to develop the world's most exquisite weapon systems was an asset for us. We could dominate the battlefield because nobody could compete with our ability to engineer these exquisite weapons. We're no longer in that global environment. We need to be able to operate with speed. We need to be able to understand how can we leverage the innovation, the scale, the research that is occurring outside the five walls of the Pentagon, and figure out how to bring that technology, that innovation, that capability through our acquisition system as frictionless as possible and deliver it in the hands of the warfighter.
Secretary Michael, how does research and engineering define the challenge? What do you have in common with the way that Secretary Duffy laid it out, and where does it differ?
We overlap a lot and partner a lot where we're both trying to change the culture of the place from an acquisitions and testing and evaluation standpoint, and then simultaneously trying to bring in the new entrants, we call them neoprimes, those companies that are benefiting from this explosion in venture capital dollars and are building technology from a clean sheet of paper without sort of the sort of requirements-driven process. Instead of using that, they're using the common operational problem framework, which what's the problem we're trying to solve at the department, and give us creative solutions to do that, which is much easier for them to then be inventive. And how to make them sort of work with us in an easier way with simpler contracts, simpler pathways to do testing, so that when they get through that gauntlet, so to speak, and they do that more quickly, then they're ready for a program of record for scaling on Mike's team. So that's how we work together, and that's some of the challenges we're trying to, and change we're trying to drive.
That sounds like a plan. So one of the first barriers that we would automatically default to, and that we heard in the opening remarks, was around resources and budget and thinking about investment. I want to share some facts with the audience that I think some of them may be more familiar with than others. So internally within Pennsylvania, there have already been some pretty significant investments. We heard about a few of them already. I'll add a couple more, $18 million through the Defense Production Act in different industries across microelectronics, machining systems, batteries, and others. We've seen an investment in the steel industry through Elwood Quality Steels to accelerate metal certification, $300 million to Chemring for pyrophoric countermeasures. Similarly, the industrial base in Pennsylvania has made its own internal investment of about $5.3 billion in its own processes and modernization. 9,100 jobs have come out of that. Lots of wins there, but it reflects strategy. So when we go to Congress and we seek $1.5 trillion in budget, can you walk us through what that looks like in terms of Pennsylvania industries pivoting to meet that moment, meet that strategy, look at the long-range competition, and what it means for you as you look at transforming acquisition? So I'll start with you, Secretary Duffy.
Yes, excellent. Thank you. I think, first of all, I think we made great progress already at the department in terms of encouraging and working with and partnering with industry to create the industrial growth that we need. And I'll just tell a quick story some of you may be familiar with. Earlier this year, under the leadership of Deputy Secretary Feinberg and in partnership with Undersecretary Michael, we kind of transformed how we think about doing business with, in particular, the munitions industrial base. And we took an already existing authority, the multi-year procurement authority, I'm sure many of you are familiar with, that allows the department to enter into a contract that extends beyond the single-year budget cycle. In this case, 5 or 7 year contracts. And as a result of that, we provided a certain demand signal to industry that then incentivized Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and some of the new entrants to make significant investments up to the amount of $25 billion. Now that's $25 billion of self-investment from industry in order to triple or quadruple the production capacity of our Patriots and our THAADs and the most sought after weapons in the world. I think so. That is sort of the foundation of how do we structure our partnership with industry to create the speed and volume and growth that we need. But we do need resources. We as part of that deal, we agreed to buy 7 years worth of Patriots at $2,000 per year. We have to lay the foundation to pay for those things. We kept unit costs low, We asked industry to pay the CapEx in order to get to that level. But the global environment now demands that we produce at this scale, at this speed, at this volume. And so I think in order to ensure that we're preparing the warfighter to be able to prevail, we need to ensure that we've got those resources available to follow through on those purchases.
So following up on that, Secretary Michael, when you think about from a technology standpoint that we're ready and that we're making a long play so that industry knows how to pivot and where to move, but we're also shifting, as we've already heard to a certain degree, from exquisite capabilities into a more affordable, longer term mass. Can you talk about how historic investments like this intersect with your strategy?
Yeah, I'd say that, what the last administration left us with was not a lot to work with in terms of what the next generation of warfare is going to look like, and that's AI-driven and autonomy-driven. So what we've had to do is really relook at the portfolio and make sure that we had some of those investments baked into this $1.5 trillion in a material way. You can't go from producing almost no drones and counter drones to producing millions like the Russians or Ukrainians or Chinese do out of nowhere. You have to rebuild the defense industrial base. You have to put a demand signal out there so companies start investing and then want to iterate and do that. So we've launched Drone Dominance program, which has these gates where if you succeed, you get paid along the way, so the companies can have a longer term view that they're going to get business from the department for years and years. And the other piece of this is the AI arsenal, we call it, which is, to date, we've been using AI in a very limited way at the Department of War. So we're launching all these AI initiatives, both from on the intelligence side, on the warfighting side, and on the enterprise side, and that requires compute capacity. And we know for the rest of the country, compute capacity is a challenge. It's also a challenge at Department of War because we need special computing, cloud instances, if you will. So two of those big investments are part of this big $1.5 trillion to start us on what is clearly the new trajectory of warfare.
Let's go a little further on, you said AI. We managed to go about 10 minutes without anybody saying AI, so here we go. But the lines are blurring between what we would have thought of as acquisition and what we would think of as innovation, and how those work together, and phrases that we would have contained in a more commercial innovation mindset, like Valley of Death, are very much part of the vocabulary and day-to-day parlance of what we hear in the department. So I'll stay with you if I could, Secretary Michael. You have a particular perspective on this as you came out of Silicon Valley, and in the dual roles that you have that you were alluding to. How do we get the innovation ecosystem? How do we get through the Valley of Death so that the industrial base knows where it's going, that we have the most promising technology and the real capability? How do we work together to make that happen?
So it took us 11 minutes to say Valley of Death. So 10 minutes for AI, 11 minutes for Valley of Death. What we did is we reorganized what we call the innovation ecosystem. So inside of R&D right now, we have the Defense Innovation Unit, APFIT, the SBIR SITR program, the Office of Strategic Capital. So each of those funding vehicles are for a different life stage in the company that might be bidding, for business with the department. So whether they're a startup and they just have a white paper, or they have a prototype, or they're in test evaluation phase, or they're in scaling phase, we have a way to finance them if they're producing what we want. And what's different is that all those things are aligned in one place now, and then we bring the services into each of those processes in the first instance, so that they can see what's coming in the pipeline, and therefore it's more easy to transition. So we think we've almost eliminated the Valley of Death. And you look at companies like Saronic that started out as a DIU program that are now being used in theater in Iran. You see companies like Castilian that started a SBIR SITR program getting huge orders for the department just a few years later. So we think we're crunching that time frame down pretty significantly.
I want to ask one follow-up question. I've heard you give remarks before where you talk about the individual innovator. And I want to make sure we talk about that person too, and the frustration of no that you've referred to before, and how the ecosystem that you're describing can maximize the individual innovator's creativity.
I think I meant the individual company, or I don't know if I meant the individual, but the point there is that one of the things that's frustrating, whether you're a commercial business or you're trying to sell Defense Department, is you could get strung along. I love you, man. Your product's great. So-and-so general likes it. This command likes it. And we're a department of 3.5 million people, right? So I've really, having been an entrepreneur, feel that you want to get true, no BS advice. So I try to do what I call fast yeses and fast nos. If this is working, I want to get them to the right place fast. If it's not, I don't think it's appropriate for the department at this stage, or because we don't have a need. I want to tell them that and give them the feedback quicker, so they can go back and rejigger whatever they're doing for the right thing. Or else some of these companies spend years working on something that's not going to work eventually, and they waste a lot of money, and that discourages more capital from coming into the system. So that's the philosophy on that.
That intersection between reframing the system and also the reality of the people behind the system, I think, is an important thing for us to talk about. Secretary Duffy, once we fix the valley of death, traverse the valley of death, I'm not even sure what the right verb is there, but and we've got a proven technology, or we've expanded capacity, where do you think we have the best opportunity to move it into production, ultimately in the hands of the warfighters and the people who need it?
Well, that's the next necessity, right? And it's more complex than I think meets the eye, in terms of when we identify technology that Emil's team has either scouted or developed, as since he oversees the labs across the department as well. Generally speaking, when you develop a prototype, you're not thinking about how do I store it, how do I train the warfighter to use it, how do I ensure that it's got a lifespan that the unique nature of the department demands, how do I make sure it's integrated with a whole suite of systems. And so there is some science and necessary rigor behind acquisition. The key is, how do we develop systems that can much more seamlessly insert into all of those dynamics, right? So modular open systems architecture is a big priority that Emil's team and I are working as a part of the acquisition transformation strategy. If you have standardized interfaces and minimize the proprietary nature of how things integrate into the system, then I think we really remove barriers that confront our ability to ingest a new technology into the system. And it also increases the level of competition, which I think is essential. The more we can get competition throughout the entire life cycle of a weapon, the better. The F-47, I think, is a tremendous example of that. It's prioritized open systems, it prioritized digital, and as a result, we'll be able to compete the mission systems on the most advanced aircraft the world has ever seen throughout the life cycle of the program. It's a great model for how I think we should continue to think about achieving scale as quickly as we can.
If I could follow up with you on that, down the road from here, and when we were talking about this morning, is the Letterkenny Army Depot, premier Patriot missile recertification facility. We're balancing that the strengths and opportunities that you just described between exquisite resources and low-cost, affordable mass. Can you go a little further in that direction and give us some insight there?
Yeah, I mean, there's no competing against the superiority of American weapons. I recently took the foreign military sales portfolio as part of my responsibilities, and it's clear that everyone across the world wants our weapon systems. They're the best, but they're costly and they're low volume, and we're in an environment that also demands effective cost-kill ratios and effective and large volumes. And so it's not one or the other. It's a blend of both. And so Emil's really stepped into leading an effort as we've been thinking about how do we ramp the exquisite Patriot THAAD, Standard Missile, AMRAAM all the kind of staple weapons that we've been able to rely on to maintain battlefield superiority. Emil's done a tremendous job of partnering with those new entrants who can offer low-cost alternatives, maybe not quite as capable, but plenty capable, especially when matched with those exquisite weapons, to be able to really be a force multiplier.
Why don't you tell us more about that, Secretary Markham?
Yeah, I think it's not a binary choice. In fact, the exquisite systems that we have will be much more powerful if they're accompanied by mass attritable, cheap things like the collaborative combat aircraft, or if you have a carrier that has drones going in front of it, or missile or drone defense. So the idea is to get something that's designed for manufacturing from these new companies. So from the day it's designed to be scale produced, which makes it cheap by definition, cheaper, using commercial off-the-shelf products, but with modular architectures and open systems that we can connect them with software, and then have those collaborate with the exquisite systems. And so we're making a huge push on that. I think we're asking for something like $50 billion in this $1.5 trillion to invest fully in that, because you need the industrial base to support it, a demand signal, support it. The technology is there. These companies can produce it, but they have to do it at scale, and they have to do it in combination with the systems we have, with all the tactics, techniques, and procedures. So that's what we're focused on.
Let's talk about another specific example, low-cost containerized missiles, if we could. Staying with you, Secretary Michael, from the research and engineering, the technological perspective, can you talk about how this particular capacity is an example of this intersection with partnerships with industry, with intersecting between exquisite and affordable, and where that it sits as an illustrative example?
Yeah, so we signed 4 deals with new entrants for low-cost containerized, or low-cost cruise missiles, effectively. Something cost usually about $2 million, and we're looking to get it about $500,000, so 1/4 the cost. And we wanted to be able to scale production. So given our business model now, which is no R&D, no facilitization, but you get a long-term contract. So we offer these companies a contract if they deliver. So shared risk model. It's not all in the government paying cost plus. It's we pay you, a fixed price when you deliver, and there's some benefits for delivering early and some penalties for delivering late. But that aligns our incentives, and then they have to produce at scale to get the real money. And we gave them the operational problem. We need this missile to go this far and perform this mission without 20 pages of requirements. Come back to us with what you could do. And then they're doing fly-offs every month for the next few months. Those who win get the contracts. Those who don't kind of can go back and try again. So it's sort of like you do in a business world. You hold that solicitation, you tell them what you want, they give you proposals, they get it, you go to test, they win, they get money. That's the way it should work, right? In general. So I think I'm pretty excited about that program.
Yeah, Secretary Duffy, what lessons do you think there are from this particular program across the strategy?
I think that we can, have faith in new entrants, right? I mean, I think, and this is something that I think we are working within the culture of the Pentagon, is how do we get comfortable with a new paradigm of doing business, a new set of actors. We're still going to have the old kind of reliable traditional defense primes and their entire supply chains. I know many are fed by businesses here in Pennsylvania. And one of the benefits, I think, by the way, of these new structures is that we intend and actually mandate that certainty of demand, all the benefits of those long-term contracts flow all the way through the supply chain. But I think, a couple things, I think, from the new contracts, the new entrants, there's a real focus from our conversations on designing for manufacturability. And too often, we have these exquisite weapons that have exquisite components that were designed for a single purpose. And those businesses may decide it's no longer financially viable, or they may just move into other industries. That really creates a challenge for us. I think what I've really think is a great step forward is this focus from some of these new entrants on how do I source within my supply chain from commercial sources so that we have resilience in our supply chain and we're not single-threaded with a fragile industrial base. I hope that we can take some of the lessons learned and some of the examples of the new entrants who are building these new prototypes and hopefully scale those into production and apply some of those techniques to across our entire portfolio.
So the next thing I want to ask about is completely self-serving. So let me just say that out loud. Pennsylvania is home to some extraordinary research universities, alongside some of the most incredible manufacturing bases. So the challenge in our community has never been about generating ideas. It's always been about capability, whether it's the needs that you all are responsible for or across a variety of other aspects that can directly or indirectly affect national security. We could spend the remainder of our time making that list, but in the interest of time, Secretary Duffy, you've talked about the future being forged on the factory floor and what it means to develop a workforce. Can you talk to the audience about what that means for you in the department and the strategies that you're responsible for?
Well, none of this works without a workforce and a strong defense industrial workforce. Emil and I had a chance earlier this year to go on the Arsenal Freedom Tour with the Secretary, and it's clearly a priority for the Secretary, and I think correctly so, to ensure that we recognize and celebrate our defense industrial base as tradesmen who are absolutely essential to ensuring that we do. I mean, we can't do anything without industry, and industry can't do anything without the workforce. And so ensuring that we not only recognize and celebrate, but also focus on how do we continue to replenish that workforce. We recently launched a great initiative at the department in partnership with Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs, who's really going to help us champion the industrial base as a noble profession, like something that, when you make a choice to be a part of this defense industrial base, you are a part of the national security of the United States, and making sure that it's kind of not just training, but how do we recognize the cultural value of our workforce? And so Mike Catanazzi and his team is doing great work to lead that effort. But we still have to have the training. We still have to ensure that we're adequately compensating our workforce to ensure that we have the retention. More than any other, I think, service industry, the time required to build from apprentice to journeyman in the defense industrial base reinforces the need for us to ensure that we're really recognizing and respecting and intentionally developing our workforce.
Secretary Michael, as we think about the educational landscape for developing a workforce, whether it's through the trades, through our partnerships with technical schools, or up into the research university space at bachelor's level or doctoral level, what do you think the plug-in or add-on is, or the contribution to the ecosystem that research universities have the greatest opportunity to offer?
Yeah, we have some great partnerships with universities, particularly in Pennsylvania. CMU and Pitt have been excellent partners for us. CMU's focus on robotics and AI has been really tremendous, and I'm hoping to get more of that support in the coming years as this autonomous AI revolution happens. What we're getting from a lot of these universities all over the Midwest in particular is a passion for defense, a passion for the warfighter, wanting to be part of the solution here. And it's been terribly exciting, right? We have wind tunnels in Indiana University. We have all kinds of assets that we're building and double downing on these research universities who have an ethic of being patriotic and want to help the warfighter, where we don't see that in every place. So we're like, okay, where we do find that, we're going to double down and we're going to work harder with them. And it's already paying off on some of the projects that we're working on.
Well, of course, I'm very glad to hear that, and I know my colleagues here are very glad to hear that too. I think that when we talk about the transformation and acquisition, we can get very technical. The subject lends itself to very specific attributes along from the idea to the capacity. As you all have been in the mix in this evolution at very rapid pace, I would be very interested to hear from each of you on what you think has been the biggest change in the last 18 months with the advent of a variety of executive orders, with a change in focus on budget, the way you've reframed your teams internally that you've described to us. What do you think is working best as we try to get towards an actually transformative mindset on acquisition? And whoever would like to go first.
I'll go ahead and start. Well, first of all, I think the biggest change is the speed of change. Like that's constantly what I hear across the board is never seen this much rapid change in government. And you know, that's really a tribute to our leadership. President Trump, Secretary Hegseth, Deputy Secretary Feinberg, all have this very clear mandate for change. I like to talk about how we have, at least in the acquisition side, we have agreement across both sides of the aisle, both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue, both sides of the Potomac, the Pentagon, the White House, the Congress, and bipartisan agreement on the need for change in this realm. And so that creates an environment where I think there's not only a license, but a mandate for us to move fast. I think, you know, a lot of the great work that Emil is doing with bringing AI to the workforce. I mean, before he started, we had like 40,000 unique users for artificial intelligence. Now we have over 1 million in the department. And that's just at the front end of what we can really do across the department. And I do think also kind of having this much more direct, engaged partnership with industry. What industry tells us is we've never had this level, this cadence of engagement with the department leadership, Deputy Secretary Feinberg, myself, Emil. The only way for us to get this done is communication. You said it right there. It was a very complex environment that we're working in, and the only way for us to kind of level set what expectations are and move fast is if we have that level of engagement and cooperation. You know, both sides play their natural part. It doesn't mean there aren't direct, difficult conversations. There are, but we're having the conversation, and I think as a result of that, we're moving things forward very quickly.
How about you, Secretary Michael?
I would add that most things are downstream of culture in a bureaucracy this big, but the president, the secretary, the deputy, like Mike was saying, extreme bias for action. You know, that bias for action means every day we wake up, there might be a new executive order or a secretary memo, but either way, we're talking to some CEO, we're walking the halls of some manufacturing plant, we're talking to universities or the labs, we're out there on the test ranges, we're constantly moving the ball forward every day, and we do it together. I mean, the teamwork, typically you don't see that in the department of this thing. People are a little turf oriented or whatever. Mike and I talk every day. My colleagues and I talk every day. We're trying to figure out how to best handle the volume of workloads so that when we leave this department, we've left it 10 times better than when we found it, not just incrementally better. So we're really trying to be step function change in what we're doing and doing it with urgency and speed. And we may make some mistakes, but it's a lot of fun working with this crew at that pace.
So in this audience, in this room, and also watching on the stream are the partners that you've been describing that you're engaged with. So as fast as things have moved and as much progress as you've made, there are still points of friction and challenges to overcome. What would you want your partners to know about how they can be advocates for you? I'll start with you, Secretary Michael, for what you're trying to accomplish. How can this set of stakeholders help you overcome?
Well, this budget ask, which is separated into two pieces, is the base budget, and then this reconciliation piece, which is the one-time thing, which will allow us to do these larger investments in munitions, where we were left with sort of an industrial base that wasn't producing as much as we needed. We hadn't had an AI arsenal. We hadn't had a drone and unmanned strategy. So to get all those things kickstarted, we need that We need that extra budget. But along with that comes, a fair request for discipline in the department. So we've gone through, found $100 billion in cuts. We're constantly trying to cut unnecessary things because the country can't afford infinite debt, and we want to be efficient so that we're being considerate of the taxpayer. But we do have to ensure we maintain our military superiority because our economic prosperity is downstream of that. So that's what I'd say. If anyone in the room could help with that, talk to your senator or congressman. We'd appreciate it.
Well, I think, this is working in the department has been, as tremendous honor. One of the largest command and control style organizations, the largest command and control style organization in the world. But I think what we're coming to realize is that the only way to drive the change and to achieve the pace that we need is delegation and flexibility. And we're trying to do that in the reforms that we are introducing within the acquisition workforce. We recently transitioned the program executive officer, the PEO, to the portfolio acquisition executive, PAE. And not just a name change, but how do we empower that PAE as the singular accountable official to deliver the capability we need on the schedule and ensure they're managing cost and giving them the tools, including accountable workforce that's answerable to them and their goals. I think that's also true in the industrial base, right? We want to entrust and empower the industrial base to do what we can't do within the department, which is innovate. It's sort of our greatest strength geoeconomically is our innovation, our economic might, our ingenuity. And so, the only way to achieve this level of change, I think, is for us to all be self-directive, to recognize we're all aligned to a common goal. Of course, we need to provide some parameters of what we need, but we want industry to be as engaged as developing the solution as they can. It will just multiply our ability to achieve the level of speed and volume we need for the warfighter.
Well, I think you have pretty obvious evidence of engagement simply by the participation today. So if I were to follow up on that, Secretary Duffy, if this works and we're looking 1 year down the road, 3 or 5 years, sort of relatively quick, mid and long, what would you see in place or evolving?
Well, I think when I think about how do I measure the effectiveness of my job every day, it's a little hard to quantify, but what is the confidence of our men and women in uniform, and how much do we doubt in our adversary, right? So how do you, is this particular weapon system, or if we grow this part of the industrial base, come together as a whole in terms of building the military and economic might of the United States, and how does that sort of ensure that, the goal is to win without fighting. How do we kind of ensure that our adversaries think twice about whether or not they want to engage with us? And so what does that look like 3 to 5 years from now? I think it's a robust industrial base. I think the industrial base is a strategic national asset that our adversaries certainly are aware of how strong we are, and focusing on developing that to a place where it can provide the joint force of the future and replenish that joint force at the pace that we need, I think can in and of itself be the deterrent that we need to ensure that we're protecting U.S. interests and maintaining battlefield superiority for our warfighter.
Do you see ongoing organizational changes like the one you described, moving to a portfolio mindset or different demand signals?
Absolutely. Portfolio is really the focus of how we're trying to transform, not only to ensure that we're equipping an executive like the portfolio acquisition executive with the tools that they need in order to make as seamless a process as possible to identify a need, to acquire that, and to deliver it into the hands of the warfighter, but how do we establish what we need? And so we're trying to look at it from a portfolio perspective. If we take a kill chain and we analyze what tasks are required in order to ensure that we defeat enemy air defense radar, what are the systems that we need in order to ensure that each increment of that kill chain is effective, and do we have enough of those? And so that's really driving internally, how do we define where we have needs in the joint force and how we communicate that need to industry so they can help us in the most cost-effective and rapid way provide that capability to the warfighter.
Thank you. Secretary Merkel, how about you? Short, mid, long?
You know, when I took this job over, a year and a few months ago, it felt like, at least in R&D in my world, we were running a peacetime science fair. So, and we're definitely in a mode of we have to have a wartime footing given the conflicts in the world and given sort of the arsenal that was handed to us and the dramatic changes that are happening in the technology landscape. So trying to, in a year, I think we've done a good job saying it's like at least a wartime science fair. Now I have to have it be a wartime sort of production lab, if you will, in a year. And then by the end of this, I think that if all the partners we have with R&E are really thinking about what they're doing today and how it translates to the warfighter, that may be a few years away, 5 years away from DARPA. We do invest in long-term ideas, but with urgency, and we're trying to push things out as fast as we can, and we have a robust testing environment, then I'll feel like we're recreating what we had for World War II, which was like a very capable research and engineering and development pipeline to serve the warfighter at a time of need.
That actually is a great segue, unplanned, into my last question, which is when we think about what comes as a consequence of a very robust reframe of an innovation ecosystem, a new strategy on the components and total pipeline around acquisition, there are other benefits, other industrial benefits, other commercial benefits. There can be health science benefits that a successful meeting of this moment and protecting our national security, if it traverses the valley of death, if it actually that was twice, it took me another half an hour, so I don't know if I get points for that, but is likely to create a broader innovation ecosystem, period. And that's great for not only everybody engaged in this conversation, but everybody. And so I wonder, from your points of view, how those of us who are your partners, the department itself, your partners, the universities, obviously, whether that be up from the trades all the way through doctoral studies, how you see us thinking ahead to that after as well.
I think there's no doubt that the defense industrial base and the industrial base overlap significantly. You can think about batteries, something as simple as batteries that we've outsourced to a large degree to China. When we re-domesticate those, that should have domestic benefits and defense benefits. And the research and engineering and certainly the procurement and all the things that we do to be able to produce those things in this country should benefit both parts of the economy. AI is going to benefit both parts of these economies. So robotics will benefit both. So I do think it's sort of self-evident that if we succeed, that's going to give the nation more industrial capacity, less reliance on adversarial supply chains, and we'll just be more self-sufficient in the areas we need to be. And that's been one of the sort of legacy problems we've been trying to solve pretty urgently for 20 years now. But we're finally, for example, closed five or six critical minerals deals along with Mike's team to ensure that we have friendly supply chains on those. And those things people weren't thinking about those a few years ago at all.
When the senator gave his opening remarks, Secretary Duffy talked about some of the lessons from COVID in this space. How does this look from your vantage point?
Well, I think it's a recognition of the fragility of our defense industrial base, and I think that we're still in many ways recovering from the impacts of that on the industrial base. But I think it actually reinforces the need, to Emil's answer to your last question. We're intentional about our desire to pursue commercial solutions, and I'll refer back to my comment about designing for manufacturability. It's really designing for resilience and ensuring that we have, I think if we can draw from commercial supply chains more so, we'll have a much more resilient industrial base just from a cost standpoint, from a speed standpoint, the Department of War is no longer the market influencer it once was. That's a testament to the great progress we've made in the commercial industry. And so I think now we are learning, how do we do a better job of leveraging what's going on outside of our control and introducing that as a capability for the warfighter.
I want to thank both of our secretaries for their leadership, for the transformation in acquisition and beyond that they've described, and wish them Godspeed in their endeavors. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pennsylvania's unique combination of legacy industry, cutting-edge innovation, and a skilled patriotic workforce is exactly what our national defense industrial base needs and should emulate. Our defense industry supports more than 190,000 jobs. All 7 of the nation's largest defense contractors operate in our great Commonwealth. And Pennsylvania firms supply more than 465,000 parts across 2,300 weapon systems. Scranton leads the country in large caliber ammunition, the 155 millimeter artillery shells that have been used to devastating effect on the battlefields of Ukraine. York is effectively the sole production source of the Army's Bradley fighting vehicle. Ridley Park is the only place in America that builds the Chinook helicopter. King of Prussia hosts Lockheed Martin's Space Systems Division, developing the satellites and spacecraft and advanced defense systems that will secure the final frontier. North Central Pennsylvania is the powdered metal capital of the world, producing roughly 40% of the globe's powdered metal parts. And in Philadelphia, the birthplace of the United States Army, Navy, and Marine Corps, Hanwha is investing $5 billion to revive American shipbuilding, creating over 10,000 new jobs. Pennsylvania produces more than legacy platforms and munitions. We are also at the cutting edge of defense innovation. Greater Pittsburgh is one of the world's leading robotics and artificial intelligence clusters, with more than 250 advanced technology firms. Carnegie Mellon's Robotics Institute is developing the autonomous drone capabilities that increasingly define modern warfare. Astrobotic, a Carnegie Mellon spin-out, is building the robotic landers that are carrying America back to the surface of the moon. Penn State's Applied Research Laboratory, a trusted partner of the United States Navy for 8 decades, is developing the hypersonic and undersea warfare technologies that increasingly define modern warfare. And the Bettis Laboratory in Western Pennsylvania designs the nuclear reactors that power our entire submarine fleet. And our Army depots, Tobyhanna and Letterkenny, keep our forces equipped and ready every single day. It will take a team of industry, labor, and innovation to keep America safe for another 250 years. And here in Pennsylvania, we have that team.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I want to thank Senator McCormick and his great team for bringing us all together for what I know are going to be 2 days of wonderful conversations and presentations. We have a great panel here today, and maybe I'll just take a minute to sort of set this up, and then we'll go right into the Q&A. So the surge in defense spending and the growth of related sectors like maritime are boosting demand for a wide range of occupations and skills, and requiring new types of partnerships between industrial and tech companies on one hand, and universities, community colleges, and skills providers on the other. And so when I think of it from a Temple University perspective, we're attempting to respond to this demand on multiple fronts. We're working to develop talent partnership agreements with major companies and defense installations, ensuring, and this is really important, that the degrees that we offer actually match the needs that are coming from business. And then finding new ways to partner with universities, high schools, voc techs, career technical education programs to create meaningful talent pipelines to ensure that these students who are graduating have careers where there's real economic mobility and they can really do something for our society. So that's what we're talking about here, are these talent pipelines and how we meet the needs of the companies and the industries that we'll be talking about today. So what I want to do is start with Assistant Secretary Kadenazi. Thanks for being with us today.
Pleasure.
And you've said that scaling ambitions are illusory without access to raw materials. I guess the same could be said for skilled labor. So how does industrial-based policy measure workforce as a component of surge capacity?
Thank you for the question, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you to Senator McCormick and the Army War College and all the distinguished guests here for the invitation to talk about something I think is at the crux of everything that we're doing today with an industrial base, which is trying to go ahead and rebuild the fundamentals. That includes raw materials, but really starts at the workforce. The wizards behind the warriors, the folks, the machinists, the shipwrights, the welders, the pipe fitters that actually make everything that goes into it that the warfighter needs. We oftentimes default to thinking about autonomy or hypersonics or artificial intelligence because it's the sexy new thing. We've got to still build things that have metal. I can't fire AI at the enemy quite yet. And so I think we still need to go ahead and talk about the fundamentals of the workforce as the key to resilience for the future. And so for us, in my role here, I've been honored as the Assistant Secretary for Industrial-Based Policy to inherit a team and a program that has already running 40 different workforce programs across the country. That's the anchor for Build Freedom, which Honorable Duffy mentioned. BuildFreedom.us is our anchor flagship platform for promoting skilled trades across the country. We think it's a critical national imperative that we galvanize the next generation. Your middle school kids today are going to be building submarines in 10 years. We need to get them excited in elementary school, in middle school, and in high school, and thinking about these careers and these trades. And we've got a great partner in Mike Rowe, MicroWorks, where we've given $10 million to launch this campaign. But it's not just about PR. It's about actually getting out into the field, talking to industry, talking to kids, talking to families, because mom and dad need to understand that their kid is succeeding, even if they went to college, and they want their kid to go ahead and go to college initially, because we sort of talk about that. But a lot of what we're trying to do is say, hey, it's okay, it's good. Skilled trades, you can make real money. It's an incredible opportunity. You have a stable job, incredible demand, a lot of times AI-proof jobs, which we're really excited about. And it may not be the path for everyone to go ahead and do that, and that's fine. It may not be the path to serve on active duty in the military or to serve as a government employee. But there's a chance to serve through the defense industrial base as a skilled tradesperson. And we are super excited to be promoting this as we grow from 40 workforce programs to 70 all across the country. And we're looking for you to come to us and tell us what you need, what skills, what locations, where and how do we drive this? And we're thrilled to be partnered with groups like NDIA and others in time and David's team to talk about how to get the message out and build this next wave of excitement about these skilled trades for the future.
So that's also a cultural challenge. I mean, we've been telling kids for generations that go to college, and now you're making the pitch to say, well, that's one option, but there are other options as well. What's your experience so far in making that pitch?
So I think it's actually incredible, the success of the workforce programs we've had from Honolulu Community College, where we established the first machine skills trade program since the 1970s, to Danville, Virginia, where we're doing welding for the Maritime Industrial Base, from the Gulf Coast up to Michigan, to New England, to Seattle. We're working in an incredible array of partners, local, state, industry partners, who tell us every day there's a huge need for effort and focus on this, but there's also a huge demand signal. I think that's where the great opportunity is for us to say, we will stimulate more demand with additional spending. I'm not worried about that. But there's already demand. And the difference is we've got to connect the demand signal with the kids who are prepared to go ahead and make that leap. They need to see and understand how much they can make. They need to see and understand how much fun they can have. They need to go ahead and be tied in to think about the things that they can build. There's nothing like seeing a ship in a shipyard. There's nothing like seeing an assembly line. If you haven't visited a factory, a real factory that bends metal, please do so. Call us. We'll get you a tour. I think it's one of the greatest honors I get to have is to actually go where work is being done, not paperwork, not PowerPoint, wonderful tools though they are. It's really quite amazing to see the fruit of that labor in the field. And Pennsylvania is an incredible state. It is Freedom's Forge. It is the anchor. We're committed to many programs. Our Project MAMFG program here is focused on building skilled trades. We actually had 3 students from Pennsylvania who actually won a $100,000 scholarship offered through Project MFG. We've had an incredible array of support here, and we're excited about how we can continue to drive the message locally that these jobs are open now. There's only going to be more for the future, and the response has been absolutely incredible.
Spend a little more time on Pennsylvania. So what are the things that you think are opportunities for us to sort of go deeper, become more successful, like a sort of an example of a sort of national success?
So we actually picked Pennsylvania as one of our 3 anchor states for launching Build Freedom because of the criticality of this state to the defense economy nationally, and that the interest of the leadership of the state, the Attorney General, senators, Congress, in supporting the growth of industry. And so Senator McCormick talked about the energy growth there. We're investing, many of the during the last panel, they talked about a bunch of the investments here that have gone on pyrophoric flares, on metal, into minerals, are coming from industrial-based policy because we see incredible potential in the state. We're also excited. We're hosting our DibX Accelerator Conference in Philadelphia, August 25th to 27th. Please sign up to join us to promote not just our message around Build Freedom, the broader industrial base, but also as Pennsylvania is one of the anchor locations for us to invest for the future. And so it's a critical part of our plan for growing a more stable and resilient industrial base for the future.
And maybe one more. I think in previous work, you've cited 800,000 open defense manufacturing jobs today, a projected 4 million job shortfall over the next decade. So you could do a lot of skills campaigns, but that's a lot of ground to make up. How much of the shortfall do you expect to close with people versus automation? And what does that mean for how we're authorizing workforce development programs?
So it's a fantastic question. This is a national challenge, and we didn't get in this situation overnight. We started coming out of the Cold War with the defense industrial base that was robust and the best in the world, and as Honorable Duffy and Honorable Michaels discussed, we still make incredible weapons. But we've hollowed out our industrial base as a nation since 1992. We made a lot of assumptions about how the economy would unfold. At the end of history, we were going to live in this just-in-time, service-dominated world, which was promoted by a lot of thoughtful people who thought it was the right, we could debate the decisions there, but it was promoted by a lot of people, and it has failed. Just-in-time means ready to break. That's all it means. And we are in a situation where we've recognized that it's breaking. And so for us, we want to set the ship forward, and I think under the president's leadership, under the leadership of the administration, acquisition transformation, we have an opportunity to set the course for the future which says, these are major challenges. We're going to invest in it. We're not going to shy away from the difficulty in doing it or the scale of the challenge. And I think you laid out exactly millions of jobs, and whether it's 2 or 4, it's a lot. We need to start now and digging away. I don't think I have a metric for how many more people will get in over the next 2 or 3 years. We're going to work on that here shortly. I think we can expect to see hundreds of thousands of new positions coming available and hundreds of thousands of new connections into those jobs. The real measure is going to be over the course of a decade. If the subsequent administrations and Congresses continue to believe that this is a national imperative, we want to make the case that it must be. That's going to come from us to some degree now, but we need to set the course so that the country actually gets on board and supports this long after I'm departed this job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. So let's turn to General Sunday. So you've argued that safe communities and strong workforces go hand in hand, and that a job provides identity and self-worth, and that, of course, among other things, helps to reduce crime. So if you would just sort of flip that around for this audience, what's the case that investments in defense manufacturing jobs in places like York or Johnstown, or where I'm from in North Philadelphia, are themselves, in effect, public safety investments?
So first of all, it's an honor to be here. And again, thank you, Senator McCormick, for putting this on. This is amazing. So thank you, everyone that's come to Pennsylvania to be a part of this. I'm a career prosecutor. Before that, I worked at UPS. And before that, I was in the Navy. And through the course of my career, there's one data point that never ceased to exist. And that is when people work, magic happens and communities are safer. It is absolutely unequivocal that if communities aren't safe, nothing else matters. And in my time being in a courtroom prosecuting cases, through that I realized that we have to do something more. And I really landed on jobs. And so I've worked with manufacturers associations to try to find ways to hire people that are reentering society after they come out of prison. We worked with the Manufacturers Association and the Pennsylvania Chamber to identify employers that were willing to take a second look at someone. But even going back in my life, I mean, you know, I was a bit of a knucklehead when I was a kid, and I joined the Navy when I was 18. So I'm sorry just want to put that out there. And it was the greatest, absolute, wonderful decision of my life next to marrying my wife. I was 18. I swabbed decks and shipped paint, and I learned the value of hard work, discipline. I realized that, again, you have the power within yourself to change outcomes. I never forgot it, and that's what carried through for me. And when we were able to see people become employed, they could take care of their family, they pay taxes, crime goes down. It's just better for society. And Pennsylvania has such a long history of manufacturing, a long history of hardworking citizens. And so I think that this is absolutely crucial. And I was a district attorney in York County, where we had a large presence by BAE Systems, which I was always grateful for. And we saw firsthand the positive impact on our communities by having such amazing jobs and employers. And so thank you for all of you that participate in that. And for those that are thinking about it, Pennsylvania would love to have you.
Go Navy.
So you mentioned that you joined the Navy and that experience changed your life, and thanks for your service. So Pennsylvania has one of the largest veteran populations in the United States, yet many transitioning service members leave the Commonwealth. You know, what can we do to maintain and retain that talent here in our shipyards and our arsenals and other places?
So the first thing I want to say is this, that when I got home from the Navy in 1999, I started a community college, and Harrisburg Area Community College welcomed me with open arms. I came literally right off of deployment into a classroom, and they had such an important system in place to support returning veterans. They made me feel welcome. I mean, a lot of returning veterans don't know how to study. I mean, you know, you study for other things in the military, but you may not be able to sit in a classroom. And so they worked with me through that, and they really believed in me. And through that work with the community college, I then got a job at UPS. And it was the greatest thing for me in the world. I'll never forget, a lot of the people I work with at UPS were all returning veterans. And so we had sort of that pipeline of having success in education, walking straight into a good paying job, building roots, and also living in a place that was affordable and a place that you loved. And so I think that we're dealing with this exact same issue with regard to law enforcement. So we just finished a report that last week on the fact that we can't get people to remain in Pennsylvania in law enforcement. And so one of the findings from that was not only obviously pay is important, but it's more of but community feeling, community well-being, believing you're part of something bigger than yourself, and also having that supportive framework in place was the absolute key. And so all of that is my way of saying that I think it is crucial that we redefine, to the extent that it's critical for specific to the industries, what education looks like. It doesn't have to look like the same thing for everyone. You know, I started, like I said, at community college and worked at UPS at night for 8 years. And I never thought I'd be a lawyer. I ended up becoming an attorney, and now I'm the attorney general. So I think that there's a lot that happened in between, by the way, between those. To make that clear, a lot of things, it didn't, you know, and so with that being said, we need to redefine what that education looks like, welcome these veterans when they come home. And then also, I would love to see ways for them to just have internships and apprenticeships and just get into those jobs.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much. What a great story. David, how about over to you? So in April, NDIA published its annual report called Vital Signs, which has consistently rated expanding the workforce among the greatest challenges facing the defense industrial base. So what does the latest data tell us? And if Congress could change one policy to move that grade, what should it be?
Thank you. First of all, thank you all for being here. And for those of you who are companies in this, thank you for investing your time and your resources into the defense industrial base. NDI surveys its membership annually. We have about 1,500 companies. If you have a booth downstairs, you're probably one of them. And we asked the question about, with the department's request to surge capacity or to have a resilient industrial base, what are the opportunities? What are the obstacles? Workforce consistently shows up. In fact, in the top 5 reasons to have challenges surging your capacity, 3 of them relate to workforce on a regular data basis. Recruiting and retaining skilled tradescraft, 56% of our members said that that was a difficult thing, same with clearances. So the topic we're on is very relevant to what the issues are that our membership is seeing in this area. One of the things that NDIA has championed and has been, we used to have a pipeline from service in the military to working in the defense industrial base during the Cold War. And in the post-Cold War drawdown, a lot of those programs pivoted, sending you to the civilian sector, sending you to colleges. And so we really thought it was important to restore that pipeline. There's a number of things. First of all, people coming out of the military mostly have clearances. They have strong work ethics. They understand the equipment they're dealing with. And many of them already have many of the trade skills and technical skills you're looking for because they did that when they were in their job. That's why I was very excited when the Secretary talked about, and they rolled out recently, Build Freedom, because that is very much focused on reorienting their programs back to restoring that pipeline. I think 200,000 people depart the military. It's a very large organization. People stay for different lengths of time, but it's a lot of people coming out looking for a career path. So that program, I think, really responds to one of the most important things, which is restoring that pipeline.
Thank you for that. So recruiting the next generation then may be the hardest problem. Defense manufacturing competes with commercial tech for engineers and with every other trade, or with every other trade for machinists and welders. So what is actually working to make the defense industrial careers attractive to young people? And then what do we learn from all of that in Pennsylvania?
Sure. So I think there's 3 things that really matter when you're trying to recruit people. The first is the mission. People want to work in jobs and careers where they can look back and say they made a difference. And building equipment to ensure our nation's security, making sure that the men and women of our armed forces are never in a fair fight because you gave them the best technology possible. That is a noble calling. That is a noble cause. People can get invested in that. And besides, they're really impressive things. When you think about the technology you're dealing with, when you're looking at a submarine and you know you were part of making that possible, or that high-end missile, or those other technologies, it's a very impressive task. The second one is they need to be able to see that there is a stable career path that has competitive compensation, right? These are the sort of things that help them see themselves in that career for an extended period of time. So in the first session, Secretary Duffy was up here talking about multi-year contracts for munitions. But that actually has a very significant effect on workforce. We used to have the munitions purchased 1 year at a time. Well done, good job. We may buy some next year, we may not. And every year you sort of waited to see if they were going to buy more of that munition. That's very tough for the company. It's also very tough for the suppliers and everybody's workforce. So when you have a 7-year contract that says this munition is going to be bought for 7 years, and by the time you get to the end, you already know the next munition that's going to come off that line for 7 years. The workforce can see themselves in that factory and say, I can work here, I can see the path, I can see the job. But it's not just that factory. Every supplier who makes a part for that munition, for that submarine, that's something else, now knows that they've got a 7-year production run. And they can turn to their workforce and say, this is a real pipeline. So that second part is key. The third, and this is really important, is you have to connect these communities. Over 1,000 of our members are small businesses. They don't have the reach and the sight of some of the larger companies to know where the workforce is and coming from. And if you're coming out of high school or you're coming out of another job, knowing where the openings are is a challenge. And so I will tip my hat to the Navy, which I guess is playing to the stage here, apparently. The Navy has done a lot in this area. There are 8 cities they are working with. 2 of them are in Pennsylvania, which shows you the role of Pennsylvania. It's both Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. And those programs help create a pipeline, particularly out of high schools and others, and match people up, help people in industry. How do I find workers? Help people who are coming out. I was at one of these events and there was a young man who had just gotten out of high school and he was very excited. He said, I felt like a kid looking to go play football at a college because I had 3 offers of companies who wanted me to start the day I walked out of high school before I graduated because he had done welding in shop and the school he went with really cultivated that skill so they knew he had what they needed. So that type of pipeline that helps people find the companies and the companies find the people, those are the three things, right? You need the mission, you need the stable compensation, and you need the connection. Those three things we've seen really make a difference.
David, that's great. Thank you. So, Ron, let's go over to you. So you've been a vocal advocate for Industry 4.0 and next gen manufacturing. So does automation solve the workforce shortage for small and mid-sized defense suppliers, or does it just sort of change the skills that you need? And what's the sort of realistic trade-off here?
It's a great question, thank you. And I also want to thank Senator McCormick and his team for taking a relatively small manufacturer, 150 people in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and understanding that the defense industry in PA is not just wide, it's deep, right? So we're a supplier to a supplier to a supplier, and we are mission critical. If we fail, our customer fails. So, and I appreciate the opportunity to share that story. I think I speak on behalf of a lot of these, I'm going to say these community manufacturers across the state of Pennsylvania who are head down doing the hard work every day. And you drive by these factories every single day, don't know what goes on in there. And what goes on in there is hard, noble work with true heroes. These are people that show up every day caring about what they do. And as the secretary was talking earlier, I could actually feel some of the things he was talking about. Like I could feel the hairs on my arm popping up because this is the first time I've heard that in 25 years, that kind of commitment. So with that being said, we don't just have an automation issue. I can't automate 40 years of production floor knowledge. I can't take someone who's on a production floor who's been making materials 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 25, 30 years and take that knowledge and transfer it quickly. So there's not just this feed of new employees. There's this knowledge transfer that needs to happen. And the challenge that we've always had is how a baby boomer or a Gen Xer learned is very, very different than how a Gen Z likes to be taught. So the gap that we have is that I've got people on the production floor who really think like, you got to be here 2 years before you understand what we do. And I've got someone coming in who's 18, 19, 21 years old who does not last 18 months through that process. That's been going on for years. So what happens is I get a lot of turnover of these really capable young employees who can't manage that learning process. I've been trying to figure this out. Many manufacturers and workforce development in the state of Pennsylvania has been trying to close this gap. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about automation under the umbrella of AI. So we've been able to take that knowledge, that collective knowledge by videotaping and interviewing our legacy employees who really take great pride in what they do, not to replace them, not to take that knowledge and transfer it, but to help them communicate more effectively to this incoming generation who really wants to pop on their phone and watch a 3-minute video, as opposed to sit there and shadow someone for 8 hours a day. We've taken some of our most complex production processes, which we estimated to take 18 months to be proficient at, that's down to 90 days. Two things happen. The legacy employee feels that he or she is leaving their legacy in this business because they're proud of the 35 and 40 years. And now that knowledge that they have is being transferred on. And what I've got too is I've got a 21 or 22-year-old employee who has that on-demand, I can get what I need when I need it to understand how to do this process. When I'm in trouble, how do I do this? They don't need to be fantastic at drilling through software. They can open up, in effect, a chat bot and say, I'm standing on line 7, I'm struggling, what do I do here? And the collective knowledge of, I'm gonna use his name, Glenn, he's an amazing guy. Glenn's now home asleep. Glenn used to get the phone call at 2 in the morning, which is like, hey, we're struggling how to make this, what do we do? Now what happens is that self-serve model fits with my Gen Zs. Then we've also gamified the training process. So what happens is, the world I grew up in is, we'll talk about a raise in a year. That is a very difficult way to retain young talent. So what we've done is we've gamified the skills development. As you master a skill, you get money. And so what happens now is that your path in terms of your growth is determined by you. And they go home and they're like, Mom, Dad, I got a raise. Didn't you just get a raise last month? I got another raise. So they start to take it on to themselves. And what's really important about that is that typically who we're hiring, I'm going to loosely define as the last 2 rows of 9th grade English. And they've not had a really good feeling of pride or purpose. They've been told if you don't go to college, you're not going to amount to much. If you don't go to trade school, you're not going to make any money. So often they end up in their basement on computers, dreaming of being a social influencer or opening a tattoo shop, or their band is somehow going to make it. At some point, mom and dad said, you got to get out there. They end up often at manufacturers just like Dunmore. And that is a huge opportunity for us with the right support to give them pride. Why are you here? You're saving this country. You're defending this country. It gives you purpose. You come in every day and what you do matters. You can connect what you do every day, and it gives them pay. And those are really, if we can scale those models and use automation to transfer that knowledge, we can much more rapidly compress this time frame that we have to upskill people.
That's really inspirational. Let me ask a follow-on, then I want to come back and maybe ask the panelists to comment a little bit on AI to the extent that you want to. But so many commercial manufacturers choose not to do defense work because of all the compliance costs, cybersecurity requirements, ITAR, DFARS, flow downs, et cetera. So from where you sit, Ron, are those requirements calibrated correctly for a 150-person company? And what would make defense work more attractive to firms like yours?
Love this question, and I will speak on behalf of many companies like ourselves. This is what it feels like when these demands roll down from primes to their subs to us. We feel like a barista on a Monday morning at a coffee shop, and the 3 other people that are supposed to be working there didn't show up that day. The demands come through. People are throwing orders at us. We're not sure what matters, what doesn't matter. We can't tell if it's just being pushed down to us or does it really matter. So one of the challenges that we have is there's no single source of truth to understand what we as a sub-tier supplier actually need to deliver. So it's very easy for a large prime to go, here's the 3.5 inch, if you printed it, here's a 3.5 inch requirement. And then we go through that requirement and you do start to say, we can't do this. Then you talk to the prime and it takes a long time to get this done. And they're like, we're only worried about you on this page and this page. Very difficult for us to figure that out. There's no source to go to say, hey, can you help me understand what I really need to deliver here? And that's something that would be great if it was at a national level to understand what we need to do.
If I could comment real quick, this is fantastic. The acquisition transformation strategy at its heart, which the Secretary announced in November of last year, is at its core a vision of reducing bureaucracy and overhead, doing things which in many cases are common sense, the things we've been talking about for 30 years, we just haven't done it. And I think under the Secretary's leadership, we finally have a team that's ready to do these things, the longer term demand signal, the reduction of the bureaucracy. And I'll make a point of 2 things. Yesterday, we announced the suspension of the cybersecurity maturity model certification level 2 in November, which I recognize. Holy cow. Well, I'll tell Miss Davies and Mr. Duffy, you guys are supportive. So we're really excited about that because we recognize that it has been a tension between cybersecurity and the certification process, and we weren't really getting where we wanted. We recognize it's an incredible burden on small businesses from an expense and from a difficulty standpoint. And so we're excited about reframing that as a tool for us to accelerate and improve the experience of existing defense businesses, but also to encourage new entrants to come in. Like, we want all these new companies. And on that front, we've launched our industrial-based growth team, launched LinksConnect.io, or Links software platform, and they're going to be at DibEx as well in August, as a platform for new companies to come in, register, and receive a whole suite of tools to basically help them work through those processes, from the cybersecurity piece through how to register, how to go ahead and find customers, how to actually execute with your Department of War customers. So please take advantage of that, register, and then come to us. I mean, your industrial-based offices, your offices, small businesses, the Apex accelerators, 90-plus accelerators in 300 locations, they exist solely to go ahead and help you go ahead and do business with the Department of War. That is the whole purpose of this enterprise. When and where you're not getting serviced, let me know personally. Email my office, Find Colonel Carberry here. She'll get my card. And I would love to know where we're failing. Every day, our office is chartered to go ahead and make sure we're improving the industrial base, the experience for what we're doing, and we're committed to doing that every single way.
That's great. So Ron commented on artificial intelligence before in his comments. Would you like to, offer any thoughts just how this is impacting everything we're talking about today?
I'd like to focus on how AI affects the war fight and what that means for the defense industrial base. So if I have a single pilot to fly a single drone in order to manage it, I need one person in uniform for every drone. If I have AI helping me manage the fleet of drones, I can have one person in uniform managing 5, 10, 15 drones. It actually drives up the demand signal for the defense industrial base. And it does what we try to do, which is reduce the number of people in uniform that are in harm's way. So I can either send one helicopter over and put at risk a set of people, or I can send 200 drones over into the same area without exposing anyone. So one of the things we often think about is AI as replacing people. But in the military, and we had this when we had the Tactical Wheeled Vehicles Conference in Pittsburgh. If I have several trucks that all follow each other and I only need one set of drivers, I still need the 5 trucks. I need the wheels for all the trucks. I need the engines for all the trucks. I can do more with fewer people in harm's way. And so one of the places we will see this is allowing the department to have a greater purchase from industry without needing to ramp up the size of the uniform military to keep pace, by allowing each person in uniform to have a much greater effect on the battlefield.
I think it's a fantastic answer. And so all of that leads to more demand for things that are made of metal, right, and chemicals, and things that we're actually going to build in Pennsylvania. And the workforce, I think, is going to reflect that additional demand. But it's also how the workforce is going to leverage AI for the future. And again, I think our 1950s or World War II, I should say, Freedom's Forge version of, the dirty factory floor and the bandana around the head and Rosie the Riveter is very good. And I think we want to honor the legacy there. And there's still going to be some of that. But as we're moving forward, we're talking about how to use AI as a co-pilot for that welder, for that worker. And that the worker is going to actually have an incredible array of tools at their disposal. So much like that one pilot or truck driver is going to command a fleet of trucks behind them, that person, that worker at the factory floor is going to run a bunch of machines. Many of them are going to be AI powered. And they're going to go ahead and give them incredible leverage where they might be running multiple welds at the same time. They might be managing specific tasks or machines or machining or milling all at the same time. That leverage and that vision of how to get more out of each individual worker, you still need that skilled trade because they still need to know quality. They need to know how it's going to work. They need to go ahead and be able to drive those machines to deliver what we need and do it at scale. And I think that's an incredible unlock for the workforce because it transforms the traditional welder job, the lathe job, one person at one machine into one skilled tradesperson driving an incredible array of capabilities at scale. And that's a vision we're excited to be a part of and supporting for the future.
Great. So I'm going to put this question to all 4 of you. And Dave, I'm going to start with you. So there's a workforce debate about whether the sort of binding constraint is attracting new workers into the defense base or keeping the ones that we have. So quick answer from each of you. Which is the bigger problem, attraction or retention? And what intervention do you think would best address that?
Well, when I analogize that to law enforcement, because this is an issue we're dealing with right now, I mean, you have the employees that are heading towards retirement. They did things a certain way. And then you have brand new police officers that are coming out that expect the whole world to be vastly. I think it's both. I think you have to focus on both groups. Something was said earlier about technology, and I want to talk about that real quick with the workforce. So in our statewide task force to issue, to address the issue of law enforcement recruitment and retention, one of the number one things that employees said they wanted to see was more technology in their job. And so this all sort of comes together because, they're looking at this world we live in, they're seeing the amazing things that are happening, the technology's out there, and they want to be a part of it. And so people are leaving to go into jobs where they're seeing that type of technology. And I also think about friends I know that recently got out of the military that were also used to dealing with that type of technology. They don't want to leave that behind and go, to your point, back a few decades. And so I think that's the key to victory, and I think you have to address both.
Ron?
Yeah, I'm going to say it's both. It really is both, because if I can retain my existing employees by reskilling them, and what that means is that, again, we're talking about a manufacturing floor, really noble people that would come in every day and they go home dirty. When we used to try and put technology in front of them, it was like a complete reskill. You had to send them out to school, like using a keyboard. I'm not comfortable doing that, right? These are people that just that's not how they've grown up and developed. However, when you put in effect a TikTok microphone and an iPhone camera in front of them, they can beautifully articulate what they do every single day. We can take that information and package that information in a way that makes them see their own words come out in an engineering report. So what happens is they stop seeing themselves as like, oh, when can I retire? And they start to see themselves like, oh, I think I can contribute to the next generation of workforce here. I've seen this myself. I've seen this personally in my own business, where the conversations move from like, I'm counting the days, Ron. As soon as I can get my Social Security, I'm gone. Glenn, who I talked about earlier, Glenn just got accepted to Penn State for atomic layer deposition at the material school at 61 years old. Right? How that helps with attraction is that when my young Gen Zs and Alphas start to show up, they see a path. I don't have to go to school right now. I can work, and then I can go back to school. I can learn here. And so that to me is the big transition that we're seeing, is that these I think of Glenn's replacement would euphemistically be described as a troubled teen. He's been with us for 2 years, and he proudly walked in and was telling me about the deposit that he's putting down on his first home. Right? That is what that looks like, because he sees the path. He sees the long-term investment in our organization. He looks at where we are and says, oh, okay, there's purpose here. You are not just trying to bring me in to extract my time and trade me for money. There's a purpose for what I'm doing. And if we don't give these Gen Zs purpose and passion and pride, we're losing a generation of phenomenal manufacturing workers.
Thanks for sharing that story, Mike.
So I think obviously both, but Build Freedom and our efforts are really on the attraction and the front end sort of piece, where we're trying to drive up that sense of purpose and meaning for the country. And we talk about you've got to reach the kid in middle school and elementary school. We literally have programs where you teach kids out of milk candy to talk about casting. I mean, you have to start at that level and get them excited about using their hands. You have to work the parents, as we talked about, because a lot of times the parents were the first in their generation to go to college, and they're really proud. And you've got to convince them that their kid going to the trades is not a regression. You have to talk to the grandparents, because a lot of time the grandparents came from the trades, and they were super excited to have their kid go to college. Think about that. You're trying to convince them that their grandkid going back to the trades and the factory floor is a win. So we have to go ahead and show them all the benefits from a service standpoint, from a family standpoint, from an income, stability, all those things, from a pride and quality of life standpoint. It's incredibly important to tell that story. We need to pivot. And, again, Jenny being the first person in her family to go to college is amazing, right? But Timmy being the first kid in his family to go back to the trades also should be amazing. We should be excited about that.
David.
So I think there are two very different challenges. On the attraction side is really helping people who don't have exposure to people in this career path to go. And when you think about it, the number one determination of what career fields you go into is what your parents did. So when you look at that in the military, often the military is filled heavily with people whose family, relatives, friends went into the military, and then they see it as a career path. And other people just have no idea of what life in the military would be like, so they don't think about it. So helping people understand that through the program the Secretary talked about is key. The retention is very different. One, it's about once they're on board, what's the work like, it's the advancement. We also have to remember that at the end of the day, we're not competing for retention between companies inside the defense industrial base. We're competing between the defense industrial base and the entire rest of the economy. And so and we'll use software writing as an example, if somebody is going to get paid more to do coding for a computer game, then they'll get paid to do coding for a missile. We should expect our country to have extraordinarily good computer games and not particularly good missiles, right? And that's sort of an odd thing to say, but when you realize if you price yourself this way, you have signaled that to the person you're trying to hire, you value the game, you don't value the technology. So we always have to remember as we're doing these things, we're trying to retain the top talent at every one of these levels, whether they're engineers or trade crafts or welders, because you can lose a ship any number of ways, and making sure that that talent sees that career path is the key to retention.
That's great. Okay, so let's end with a gut question. A Pennsylvania high school senior asks you what job to pursue if they want to help build the arsenal of freedom. So what do you tell them? Take it in any order.
There are myriad ways to go ahead and serve the country. Number one, I'd put that first. Find the way to go ahead and do it. Two, if you go ahead and you want to pick a particular skills, trade capability, think about whether you want to move, right, and go to a program. That's someplace that you want to be. You want to be by the beach? We got programs for that. You want to be in the mountains? I got programs for that. If you want to stay at home, I got programs for that. And so it's really around enabling their life choice to go ahead and have and build the life that they want in those careers. We want to create pathways that open up however they want to get there. There's no right or wrong. It's about building that future for them. And I'm excited to go ahead and help folks find that way for the future.
I would just remind, when we think of the defense industrial base, we often think of like a tank, right? The Defense Department buys everything under the sun. Go to Defense Logistics Agency, the amount of supplies they're buying. So I'd first start with, what is that individual's passion? Because there is some part, there's some company, there's some technology that depends on that skill that is part of the defense industrial base, whether it's a prime or supplier, large or small business. And then the second question becomes, as you pointed out, where do you want to work, but the type of company. They're very different. When you have such a large industrial base, you have companies that you have family-owned businesses, you have large businesses, you have lots of options of different types of places to work. That's one of the advantages of this career field, is where you work, what type of company you work. You can work in a lot of those different places and still pursue your passion.
You know, I would say that a couple things. The first one is, when I was, I'm a prosecutor, but through the course of being a prosecutor, when people would leave and they ultimately would come back to the job, the reason they would always cite is they missed the mission. And I think that you have to find a way to instill in young people that sense of mission. Because when you do have that, such as, when I joined the Navy myself at the age of 18, then in your life, you will constantly be searching out being part of something that's a mission for a greater good. And so that's why for me, this question I would say is, and I do this literally every day, I sit down with young people and explain to them the absolute blessing in my life from enlisting in the military at a young age. And it built that sense of mission within me. It has never left. And I know that that's something that would certainly attract tons of people to this industry.
Great, Dave, thanks for that. Ron, we'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I have to address what I've been addressing for years, is that the purpose of a business is profit. And that's built into the DNA of these kids. I'm gonna use the word kids. So what we do is we hey, look, profit's important. Without purpose, we're nothing. So we lean into the purpose. So when people join our organization, we don't say we make specialty materials for aerospace and defense. What we say is, those satellites which protect and defend and keep our communication open, you're gonna be part of that. And that's got to be the trigger. There's got to be purpose. It's not a job, it's a career, it's a calling, it's a passion. You have to find ways to tap into that with this generation. It's not just about the job anymore. It's about purpose. What's my purpose and why do I matter? And they are dying for someone to give them that purpose.
Buildfreedom.us, join us.
This has been an outstanding panel. Let's give these guys a hand. Appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the screens for a special video presentation before today's keynote address.
For over half a century, Accutronic has been the hidden backbone of the aerospace and defense industry. Our simulation and test division is the global market leader in high-performance rate tables and hardware-in-the-loop simulators that test and calibrate inertial sensors, navigation systems, and missile seekers. Today, we proudly announce the inauguration of Accutronic's new facility in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, now the world's largest site for rate tables, hardware-in-the-loop simulators, vibration test systems, and stabilized platforms, supporting the nation's most critical defense programs. Backed by this multi-million-dollar investment, Accutronic expects to double its Pennsylvania workforce over the next 5 years, advancing missile development, hypersonics, directed energy, and navigation. We're proud of our home in Western Pennsylvania, and we look forward to creating new jobs as this expansion takes shape.
Hi, I'm Eric Degenfelder, president of U.S. Metal Powders. We're the largest producer of aluminum powder in the world, with the plants in France and plants here in Palmerton, Pennsylvania. Our aluminum powder is used in a lot of different industrial applications, like automotive parts manufacturing, chemical processing, welding, refractory materials, and critical mineral processing. Aluminum powder is also used in military applications for energetics and explosives, and also solid rocket motors that power missiles and rockets. We are growing here in Pennsylvania at our division called AmCal from 30 million pounds in 2025 to 40 million pounds in 2026. To support that growth, we built here our fourth production line with an investment of $10 million. We also added 15 new jobs to support that growth, and then added 12 million pounds of capacity. The new unit is also designed to effectively produce a specialty material called spherical aluminum powder. Spherical aluminum powder is used by the military in several applications. Now we're in the process of scaling up that material, and we're working with several large U.S. defense companies to qualify and trial our material and to support the overall demand growth for this key critical material. Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Bergeron, CEO of Adelon. We're a U.S.-based technology company specializing in directed energy, advanced optical assemblies, and precision coatings that power mission-critical platforms. Today, we're announcing a major expansion of our U.S. manufacturing footprint with the 80,000 square foot facility for both headquarters and production located in Philadelphia and opening in the summer of 2027. This site will more than quadruple our precision coatings capacity, allow us to consolidate our crystal growth operations, and support more than $30 million in investment. This expansion strengthens Pennsylvania's role in the defense industrial base, bringing high-tech manufacturing, advanced materials production, and long-term jobs directly to the region. Furthermore, this ensures the U.S. has reliable domestic capacity for the components critical to the next generation guided missions. Adelon is ready.
Hi, I'm Brian, CEO of Illyria. Illyria is something of a Google spin-out. Founded 4 years ago, we're bringing technology we developed there to help operators of networks in motion, the sort of networks that span land, sea, air, and space. We have customers at NASA, the European Space Agency, commercial satellite network operators, as well as other U.S. government offices and agencies, including the U.S. Space Force. Our company recently completed its Series B, and we're set up for a lot of scaling and expansion. But one of the things that's always held us back from growing and expanding in the Pittsburgh area, where I'm personally based, is the lack of access for a startup like ours to be able to use a SCIF, or secure compartmentalized information facility that's needed to support customers with classified information requirements. I'm thrilled at the news that there's a SCIF coming to Pittsburgh, and I can also announce that Illyria will be one of the tenants in that new facility, which is going to set us up to be able to scale and hire and expand in the Pittsburgh area. I'm excited about what this means for the Pittsburgh tech community and for our company. Thanks.
Viper 1-1, cleared hot. Target building, grid 347862.
What if the next order you receive isn't real? As adversaries gain the ability to imitate trusted voices, protecting operational communications becomes mission critical. Unlike traditional voice AI that analyzes sound, Voiced analyzes the physiology of speech production, identifying characteristics beyond what the human ear can perceive. It verifies authenticity, confirms identity, analyzes operational content, and identifies behavioral indicators to deliver trusted operational intelligence before critical decisions are made. Founded and headquartered in Pennsylvania, Voiced is driving economic growth and developing next-generation AI that strengthens America's national security. Whether supporting command and control, intelligence operations, or force protection, Voiced helps warfighters verify identities, trust orders, and act with confidence. Trusted voice, mission ready. Voiced.
Hi, I'm AJ, CEO of Sphere Break Defense. Delivering quality, innovation, and reliability to those who serve.
It's July hot here in Tunnelton, Pennsylvania. I'm Bill Smith, founder and CEO of a company called Firepoint Energy. We're here to process 4 million tons of waste coal on this property, extracting rare earth and critical minerals. We've identified 16 of the 17 lanthanides, as well as a host of other critical minerals like hafnium and vanadium, and at the same time produce synthetic fuels, like synthetic jet fuel for our aviation industry, for the military and for standard airlines. We have 100 acres here, 4 million tons of waste coal. This is one of 15 sites we intend to develop here in PA, 5 in the anthracite region, 10 in the bituminous region. Filed 4 grants with the DOE as a subawardees with Penn State, and we filed another grant with Texas A&M, again with the DOE. And our goal is to raise enough capital to build this pilot site out and to build 15 plants across the state. If you need more information, our website is firepoint.energy. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Matt Haggerty, president and owner of QE Manufacturing, a precision machine shop serving the aerospace, defense, and commercial industries. Today, we're announcing our partnership with Bucknell University to study AI-powered automation in transforming manufacturing companies. This was made possible through a $70,000 grant as part of Pennsylvania's Manufacturing Innovation Program. Our collective goal is to advance innovation in manufacturing workflow processes, helping companies build better, not only here in New Berlin, but across Pennsylvania. We're proud of QE Manufacturing's almost 75-year history and excited to be looking to the future.
Mac Defense delivers rugged, mission-ready trucks for military and government customers worldwide. Built on proven Mac commercial platforms and manufactured in Allentown, Pennsylvania, these high-performance vehicles provide the reliability and durability needed for defense and critical infrastructure missions. Mac Defense has received another order from the U.S. Army for 115 M917A3 heavy dump trucks, bringing recent orders to a total of 208 vehicles valued at more than $84 million. These military-ready trucks are based on the proven Mac Granite platform and support critical missions, including construction, infrastructure maintenance, logistics, and disaster response.
For Pennsylvania, this program means more than new military vehicles. Built in Allentown by a skilled local workforce, the M917A3 program supports family-sustaining jobs, strengthens the regional economy, and reinforces the Commonwealth's vital role in America's defense and manufacturing future.
Founded in Pittsburgh in 2009, Q Intel is a data and technology company providing government-grade threat intelligence to give our partners an asymmetric advantage in global awareness. Q Intel's contributions to Pennsylvania and our nation are highlighted by several multi-year contracts with government and commercial partners, most recently an $84 million contract with U.S. Cyber Command. Q Intel is proudly headquartered in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which has been a major factor in our extremely high performance on nearly 2 decades of U.S. government and private sector contracts, despite not having taken any investment dollars to date. Building on deep expertise and a spirit of American innovation, including 6 patents and 2 patents pending, Q Intel will release several new revolutionary technologies in 2026, focusing on offensive actions, defensive capabilities, and analytics.
Higher education is the secret weapon of national defense. My name is Tom Foley. I'm the president of ACUP, the Association of Independent Colleges and Universities in Pennsylvania. That's over 80 schools. That's almost 280,000 students. These schools attract new talent to Pennsylvania. We host startup accelerators. We innovate in artificial intelligence, in robotics, in drone technology, and even in quantum computing. Pennsylvania is the birthplace of AI. Pennsylvania is also a top destination for out-of-state students going to college. And of all of the Americans who won a Nobel Prize, 1 in 6 of them was affiliated with ACUP. 91% of our schools fund a yellow ribbon program for veterans. 70% of our schools sponsor ROTC officer training. You can learn more about the annual ACUP Veterans Day survey and the ACUP National Defense Report at our ACUP website.
I'm Jeff June, Chief Operating Officer of the Trivedi Institute for Space and Global Biomedicine at the University of Pittsburgh. We bring together researchers, government, industry, healthcare, and commercial space partners to accelerate technologies that improve human health, military readiness, and national resilience. Today, we're announcing the launch of our inaugural statewide initiative to build Pennsylvania's space and defense biomedicine ecosystem. During our first year, we're establishing new research partnerships, expanding translational capabilities, creating 6 new positions, and building the operational foundation needed to attract future investment, talent, and innovation to the Commonwealth. This is a programs and partnerships initiative focused on building long-term research and innovation capacity. Headquartered in Pittsburgh, we're building partnerships across Pennsylvania that strengthen the Commonwealth's research expertise, workforce, and national defense innovation ecosystem, while creating technologies with applications both for our military and civilian healthcare. We look forward to working with partners across Pennsylvania to advance the future of space and defense biomedicine. Together, we're helping establish Pennsylvania as a national leader in space and defense biomedicine.
Voyager Technologies is a defense technology and space solutions company that enables mission-ready systems that secure today and power what's next for the U.S. and partner nations. Voyager Technologies is a defense technology and space solutions company that enables mission-ready systems that secure today and power what's next for the U.S. and partner nations. Voyager Technologies is a defense technology and space solutions company that enables mission-ready systems that secure today and power what's next for the U.S. and partner nations.
For generations, JWF Industries has been building trust, innovation, and advanced manufacturing right here in Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Faith, family, and country is the very heart of this organization. It's the workfighter supporting the warfighter. And I'm happy to announce over $500 million worth of contracts that not only support our workfighters, but also our warfighters, so someone can come home because of the products we build to keep them safe.
The level of detail, all the armed servicemen and women can rely on it. Help keep our guys safe.
Helping protect them feels amazing.
Every bolt, every weld, and every vehicle reflects a commitment to the people whom Americans depend upon. JWF Industries, serving our customers, our communities, and our nation.
Drone warfare has changed how wars are won, but America has a problem money alone hasn't solved. We can't produce autonomous systems at the speed this moment demands. Every drone company in this country is working on the same production problem, on their own, burning precious time and capital. That's not an innovation gap, it's a manufacturing gap and a national security risk. But today, Carnegie Foundry and Carnegie Mellon University are changing that. Backed by $50 million in CMU investment, we're launching the Autonomous Systems Manufacturing Platform, a reusable production capability every American drone maker can scale on. Built inside CMU's National Robotics Engineering Center, nearly 30 years deep in autonomy and robotics for the Army, the Corps of Engineers, and industry. This platform launches with 2 leading U.S. drone manufacturers already on board, and a track record behind it with 3 Carnegie Foundry ventures already launched with CMU's NRAC. We're not betting on an idea. We're scaling a capability already working with private capital, industry partnership, and public support. The arsenal of freedom gets built here with the robotics talent, the manufacturing base, the defense infrastructure all in one place. Come build it with us.
DeepWave is an AI software and hardware product company. We build AI-powered radio frequency systems for the U.S. government and telecommunications customers. We are excited to share with you that we are partnering with the Air National Guard to bring modern AI capabilities to protect 4th-generation U.S. aircraft. We are actively testing our AI systems on the F-16 and extending the usable lifetime of these aircraft.
Hello, I'm Eric Hoffman. I lead business development for DeepWave. We are a team of 10, growing to 30 by the end of the year. Our headquarters are in Center City, Philadelphia, and World Electronics manufactures all of our products here in Pennsylvania. DeepWave has substantial financial backing from the Commonwealth. Our investors include Ben Franklin Technology Partners of Southeastern Pennsylvania, Lehigh Valley and Angel Investors, NextFab Ventures, Robinhood Ventures. DeepWave is also supported by an active community of creators, makers, and inventors, all here in Philadelphia. We are proud to call Pennsylvania home.
Hi, I'm Brian Muzica, Senior Vice President at Advanced Cooling Technologies. ACT is a leading provider of thermal management solutions for the space, defense, AI, data center, and industrial industries. And today we're here to announce 2 major initiatives that will fuel growth of both jobs and ecosystem in Pennsylvania. The first is we are expanding our ammonia constant conductance heat pipe product line. This technology is a key enabler for satellite programs, including Golden Dome. The second initiative is we are embarking on a 50,000 square foot facility expansion to enable us to produce up to 2 million cold plates per year. We're a proud part of the PA ecosystem with both our Lancaster and York facilities, and we are proud to be able to offer sustainable and high-profile jobs and continue to make PA the forefront of both innovation and national security.
From the F-35 to the Orion spacecraft, Lockheed Martin is helping shape the future of defense and space exploration right here in Pennsylvania. Across our major sites in Valley Forge, Johnstown, and Archbald, more than 5,000 employees are developing advanced technologies that strengthen America's security and build the arsenal of freedom. Our impact reaches even further through a network of 625 Pennsylvania suppliers, supporting innovation, creating opportunity, and generating more than $3 billion in economic impact across the Commonwealth, with our footprint continuing to grow. Together, we're supporting American jobs and delivering technologies with speed and scale that help secure the future. Lockheed Martin, a trusted partner in Pennsylvania, delivering innovation and moving with urgency to defend our nation.
For war is one of the most effective means of preserving peace. George Washington first said it to Congress in 1790, peace through strength. It was a message that became the foundation of our young country's identity. And now in our 250th year, this simple truth has been restored as the bedrock of our continuing American soul, all made possible by the greatest military on the face of the earth.
Our souls are filled with gratitude for every generation of warriors who have worn the uniform all the way back to the very beginning. Thanks to their extraordinary service and devotion, 250 years later, America stands tall, America stands proud, and America stands free.
Our country stands on the shoulders of these giants. To them, thank you. Happy birthday to our great republic.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage President and Commanding General of Army University, Major General Trevor Bradenkamp.
Well, good morning once again. It's my distinct honor to introduce our keynote speaker, the 22nd Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane. General Kane is an F-16 fighter pilot with more than 2,800 hours in the cockpit. And on the morning of September 11, 2001, he was one of the first pilots in the sky, flying combat air patrol missions over Washington and defending the Capitol. He went on to serve in Iraq, where he helped lead the special operations campaign that crushed the ISIS caliphate, and he later served as the Pentagon's senior liaison to the CIA. In 2025, the Commander-in-Chief recalled him from retirement to serve as our nation's most senior military officer, and I will tell you, there is no busier man in uniform today. He oversees some of the most complex military operations in a generation, including Operation Midnight Hammer, and he's leading the Joint Force through consequential days right now. That he made time to be at Carlisle this morning tells you exactly how much he believes in this Commonwealth and this summit and its impact on the defense of our nation. And I will tell you, this is sort of a homecoming for the chairman, as he spent some time here after graduating from the Virginia Military Institute, but I will let him elaborate on that if he chooses. An aviator, a warrior, and America's senior military officer, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming back to Carlisle Barracks, General Dan Kane. Well, can you guys hear me okay? Sounds like it. All right. Well, Trevor, thanks for that great introduction, and thanks to you and your family for all you do to serve. Senator McCormick, I think, is voting, but I appreciate his invite to do this. It is always a privilege for me to come back to Pennsylvania and here to Carlisle. A quick story. After graduating from VMI, my dad was a student up here at this great institution, and I came up here to live. In the early days of my professional life, me with my one-page resume, a pair of khakis, a red power tie, and a blue blazer believed ideologically that I could solve the global economic crisis right on High Street down here in Carlisle. So if you'll hang with me, imagine young Dan Kane walking to all of the banks with my very average economics degree and sliding my one-page resume slowly across the table to that bank manager, convinced that I could solve their problems. And I could not get hired as a bank teller in Carlisle. About 20 minutes later, my tie's undone. I'm walking dejectedly down High Street, and there's a help wanted sign at a place called Fast Eddie's Billiard Parlor and Saloon. And I walked in, and a gentleman named Dick Phelan took grace upon me, and before I could explain who I was, he said, "You're hired." And I said, "What do you want me to do, sir?" He says, "You're going to be a bartender." And I said, "I don't know how to make any drinks." And he says, "You'll figure it out." So I ended up working at Fast Eddie's. And then ultimately the gingerbread man down here, raise your hand if you're a local and you understand the G-Man. I ran the G-Man earlier in my life, which was my first business and entrepreneur experience, which was great. I want to express again my thanks to Senator McCormick and his team for pulling this together, along with the leadership here at the War College, General Breedenkamp and the team. And let's give everyone who put this incredible event together a round of applause, please. Looking around this room today, I'm humbled and inspired by the convergence of talent, experience, and patriotism gathered in this room. We've got defense CEOs, tech pioneers, capital allocators, investors, military officers. And the way I think about this is the three amigos of America's defense: funders, founders, and fighters. And you got to have all three to drive America's combat capability. The collective brainpower, energy, and experience of all of you in this room represents what I believe to be America's single greatest strategic advantage. And that's each and every one of you. It's a powerful reminder, and we should never forget this, that when we go fight our nation's wars, we never do it alone. It is always with our private sector partners. Your continued innovation, your shared commitment to this mission are not just helpful, my friends, it's essential. And as we look at the tapestry and the landscape, the global environment that we're operating in right now, I couldn't be more grateful for each and every one of you. And this is an important time. It's complex, it's dynamic, and it's consequential for our nation's security and our shared future. The challenges that we face right now are global. They stretch across every domain of warfighting, and they're evolving simultaneously. And they compress the time and space for leaders
and risk holders to make decisions. As the chairman, my job's to look across the globe to give the president a set of military options and associated risks, and then help him and the rest of our national command authority to carefully weigh the use of military force, the other elements of government power to include our economy, our energy, our alliances, our partnerships, the intelligence that we get from our intelligence agencies, all to ensure and assure the safety and security of the United States of America. And when I think about global risk today, that global risk equation is extraordinarily complex and scaling. Ongoing operations in the Middle East, more than 4 years of a brutal conflict in Europe between Russia and Ukraine, the interest that we have in securing our southern flank in our own hemisphere, a nuclear-armed North Korea, and a China that continues to advance on their own military and strategic objectives. And all of this is happening at the same time. Layered on top of all of this is the speed now at which information flows. Leaders who stood in our stands before this had time and space to make decisions. They had days and weeks. We're now down to simply seconds, and every second matters. Warfare is no longer confined to traditional domains. It now stretches literally from the seabed to cislunar space and soon beyond. We're fighting and competing in the cognitive space, the fiscal space, the cyberspace, and the information space. And it ranges from feeds on our phones to satellites and everything else, all at the same time. And at the same time, the very character of war is changing, driven by unprecedented complexity and technological acceleration in areas like AI, quantum, autonomy, and drones. And these advances are driving down quickly the cost per effect and pushing lethal and non-lethal capabilities in the hands of a lot more actors than we had to deal with before. And we have to remember right now, as both buyers and sellers, that quantity has a quality all of its own. And today that quantity can be built, networked, and employed much faster than it could before. We see this emerging all over the world right now on today's battlefields. A few years ago, it took nation states to put together sophisticated command and control structures, sensors, networks, etc., precision weapons into the fight. Now small teams are doing that literally day over day. If you walk out to Ukraine and you go to the FLOT, you see innovation happening in real time. The new reality of modern warfare, my friends, is competition at a speed and velocity that we haven't planned for. And the integration of AI represents a whole new world for the U.S. military, but for our nation as a whole, fundamentally transforming how we see, sense, understand, and decide and act in modern competition and potentially conflict. And we've got to harness these technologies right now. And your joint force is entering an era in which real-time data, autonomous systems, human-to-machine teaming is not an option, it's a requirement. And that's why events like this here in Pennsylvania, the partnerships forged tonight between the joint force, entrepreneurs, investors, innovators, and like I said, founders, funders, and fighters is so important. You are critical in this line of effort to ensure that we are prepared if we are called upon. It's you in this room, the people who write the code, build the sensors, design the capabilities, manufacture the capabilities, scale those capabilities, so that we end up making sure that those young members of our all-volunteer force have the combat capability and capacity that they need before I ask them to go do something. What I need you to know And I know this is simple for me to say, but hard to do, is to go faster. Please go faster. Think bolder. Stay focused on real problems that soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen face every single day. To everyone, and I say this having spent time in the private sector and now back in the military, we all need to deliver quality weapons delivered on time with shorter lead times and at lower costs. Bring us ideas that can survive first contact with the acquisition enemy and scale at the speed of relevance. And work with us to break down the bureaucracy that slows all of us down. And we owe you a few things as well, my friends. We owe you to be better buyers, to write better contracts, to be more predictable in our asks. And we're working on this, but we cannot do this alone. And I appreciate the efforts, the leadership, and the actions the Congress is doing on both sides of the Congress and on both sides of the aisle to help us properly arm America's joint force before we need to go use it. So we got to all keep going. Collectively, we all have to have a deep and shared sense of urgency and a clear-eyed understanding of risk. We must move together with speed and precision to build a joint force and a more innovative joint force. And when I think about innovation, I think about legacy. And as Americans, not Americans, we've done this numerous times, and all of you are great Americans. Right here in Pennsylvania, that tenacity and grit has shown itself time and time again through the history of our nation. And this nation is a country that leans into hard problems, that attacks challenges, that is entrepreneurial at the core of our being, stretching back more than 250 years of our American history. We've spanned this continent with steel rails that became America's railroad systems. We've mapped the bottom of the ocean. We've walked on the moon, and soon we'll walk on Mars. And in the dark days of World War II, we didn't just fight forward, we mobilized this nation. We innovated and we transformed an entire industrial base to meet the needs of those 18-year-old kids out at the front edge of the fight, closing with our enemy. And a lot of it happened right here in Pennsylvania. In Butler, the American Bantam Car Company took an idea and in 49 days created the Jeep, something that still exists today. In Eddystone and Burnham, the Baldwin Locomotive Works made more than 2,400 tanks, along with locomotives and ship propellers that the Army and Navy needed to get to the fight. In the Cold War, we faced a different kind of set of challenges. We outcompeted, out-innovated, outmaneuvered, and outthought our adversaries for more than 40 years and imposed costs that resulted in a much more peaceful world. The entire history of our great nation is built on a simple premise. When we can come together and bring our best ideas and focus together on a common purpose, there is literally nothing we cannot do. And I believe the next Bantam, the next Baldwin, the next breakthrough challenges, the next breakthrough that changes the fundamental tapestry of the way we're going to fight and win our nation's wars is sitting in this room right now. There's an example just down the river on the south side of the river, the New Cumberland DLA facility in Susquehanna. This distribution center sits at the nexus of what we need to do to be able to supply the joint force. And I have definitely learned in the time that I've been in this job, that old adage that professionals really do logistics. It is one of the great areas of exclusivity that the United States of America has. We can go do things at the time and place of our choosing because of facilities and teams like those here at DLA in Pennsylvania. These folks are innovating all the time, working with the private sector, companies like Home Depot and Walmart, and utilizing commercial technologies that range from Power BI to SAP, and looking at ERP management systems to innovate on the spot. They are founders and entrepreneurs at their core. They are problem solvers at their core. And it's places like this spread all around the Joint Force, enabling us to go do the things that our Commander-in-Chief and you will ask us to do that requires an innovative spirit that is amazing and an exclusive thing that the United States has more than anybody else. What's common about all these things, whether it's tanks or railroads or the capability that DLA does, what's common about all of it is teamwork. Teamwork between the private sector and the public sector. Teamwork between the military and companies that bring military capability. We have done this before, and we've got to do this again. Because the distance between your company's workplace and our folks on the edge of the tactical empire is incredibly small. The distance between you and the Abraham Lincoln, the distance between you and that PAC-3 operator, the distance between you and that F-35 squadron is minuscule. And I would be remiss if I did not talk about service. And you all would be incredibly proud every single day of what your Joint Force is doing all over the world right now. But I'll tell you and I'll ask you and I'll remind you that service in our nation can take many forms. It can be in the military, it can be in the fire department, and it can be in the private sector. One thing that's clear and unambiguous about this country and this state is this fabric of service that runs through our DNA as Americans. Here in Pennsylvania, and General Bregenhamp talked about it, this is a special, special place. You were keystones of the American Revolution, the Industrial Revolution, the Cold War, and every conflict we've been in ever since then. I'm reminded that Pennsylvania is the birthplace of people like General George Marshall and General Hap Arnold. And I obviously borrow a lot from Marshall in my day job. And I'm grateful for all of the efforts that Pennsylvania and all of you do who've come here for this great event. I'm very grateful for this. And as I conclude today, as I often do, I ask each and every one of us who are in this incredible venue today to remember our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, and Coast Guardsmen, who, as we speak right now, the sun setting in the Middle East, are going out into the darkness to do our nation's work. They go out there so we can be here. They go out there because that's what our country needs them to do, and they go out there to keep us safe. Lastly, I ask all of us to remember our fallen, who gave us the gift of the ultimate sacrifice, and their families who continue to show us what courage, tenacity, and grit really looks like. Thank you all. Thank you to Senator McCormick, his team and leadership who allowed us to be here today. I also want to thank the Pennsylvania State Police for not giving us a ticket, as we did about 120 down the road. For all of you, I hope this conference, this summit, is an incredible 2 days. I know the Secretary and the President are looking forward to spending time with you. Thank you for letting me be here today. God bless you all. God bless America, and God bless our Joint Force.